Topic: Precision Farming Systems (VRT, GIS). At the end of this lesson you should be able to understand the following concepts: VRT, GIS, remote sensing, soil maps, yield monitor, yield cards. Introduction. Learning content covered in grade 12 terms 2 and 3. Construction processes, tools and equipment. Concepts and skills. Precision farming/efficient mechanization. Globally, industries are turning to integrated digital products that promise increased productivity. This effective approach then leads to a larger turnover, something that every business strives for. The agricultural sector is no exception. Prosperous farmers use the best technological equipment for elevated borders at a lower cost. Precision farming is based on controlling input and data-driven decision-making so that farmers work smarter, not harder. Precision farming is especially used by young farmers because it is one of the many modern techniques used for effective production. There is no doubt that the pressure on the South African farmer is growing to work more effectively. With land reform, increases in input costs, changing weather patterns as well as the annual 2% growth of our country's population, this pressure will only increase. It is estimated that by the year 2035 South Africa will have a population of approximately 82 million people. The implication of this is that food production and imports will double just to feed the people of the country. This challenge is so real that the state has allocated us 6.2 billion to the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries to help alleviate the impact of, especially the increase in wages, on the small farmer. However, it is not only the small farmer who is affected, but due to all the above factors, the commercial farmer is also hit hard in the mouth. Thus, mechanization must be viewed as a long-term solution for efficiency. Mechanization is good and well, but without control it will not be an effective solution. The smart way to get the most out of agricultural land with the least input costs is by investing in precision farming practices that function in synergy with the mechanical aspect. One of the most prominent precision farming systems for increased efficiency is satellite navigation. Using a navigation system, the farmer can not only cut his input costs, such as fuel and time, but also increase his yield by getting more plants per area as well as eliminating dead areas. The more accurate the GPS signal, the more effective the planting, fertilizing and harvesting process, leading to savings and soil optimization. Changing rate application in agriculture. VRT. Changing rate of application technology for better results. Variable rate application helps farmers increase their yields by using optimal fertilizers, seeds, and chemicals in the areas of the fields where the inputs will add the most value, while the inputs are reduced in places where it affects less yields. In precision agriculture, the application of variable rate is an invention that focuses on the automatic application of substances at a given location. The application of these substances is based on data collected by technologies such as sensors, GPS, and maps. These substances are inputs such as chemicals, fertilizers, and seeds. The main focus is on optimizing crop production. Changing pace application methods, application at varying doses focuses on different areas in farming activities, such as fertilizing, lime application, weed control, irrigation, and sowing. Some variable applications can be used using geographic positioning system, GPS, or even without GPS system. Two basic technologies for the application of variable application are map-based and sensor-based. Map-based variable rate technology (VRT) adjusts the appropriate rate based on a generated electronic card, also known as prescription card. The GPS receiver gives the field position and a prescription map at the desired rate. The applicator then applies the field position and prescription of a GPS as it moves on the land. For example, to develop a prescription map that will be used for nutrients VRT on a farm, the map-based method must have the following steps: perform systematic laboratory analysis and soil sampling for the field, Generate a site-specific map of the nutritional value characteristics of the soil. Then use an algorithm that will develop a site-specific map for nutrient prescriptions, and use the prescribed card to control an applicator with varying dose of fertilizer. Sensor-based application with variable application does not require any positioning system or map. Sensors mounted on the applicator simultaneously measure the soil properties or crop characteristics. The information is then streamed on a real-time basis. The control system calculates the amount of input required based on the crop or soil needs. Since both the sensor and map-based system have advantages and disadvantages, some manufacturers have made implements to take advantage of both methods. Other benefits. In general, variable rate application technology (VRT) is basically used to locate information about a certain field property and to have a system that can help make decisions based on that information. The decision taken will then determine what input to apply and at what rate. The critical benefit of applying at varying rates is that it helps in automating many agricultural processes while also preserving the environment. This further increases production and efficiency. The following are some of the additional benefits applicable to variable rate. 1. Savings on the use of fertilizers and other agricultural chemicals. 2. Potential increase in yields brought about by more efficient fertilization and spraying based on the actual harvesting needs and variability of farms. 3. Environmental protection and protection against excessive use of chemicals and fertilization or spraying of chemicals. Launched in the fall of 2013, the RG700 self-propelled sprayer is ideal for spray needs requiring a smaller tank size. The RG700 is Tier 4I compliant, and like larger Rogator models, it has an application-specific cabin design that maximizes driver comfort and the use of variable rate fertilizer spreaders, VRS, is available to farmers in many parts of Kentucky. For the use of VRS, a soil fertility map must be drawn up for the distribution of the field, which must be subdivided into the field. What are geographic information systems? GIS, Geographic Information System, GIS, is a computer system built to capture, look for, manipulate, analyze, manage and display all kinds of spatial or geographical data. In a simple way, GIS can be defined as an image that is signaled to the Earth with X and Y coordinates. Explanation of GIS. GIS in agriculture helps farmers to achieve increased production and reduce costs by enabling better management of land resources. The risk of marginalization and vulnerability of small and marginal farmers, who make up approximately 85% of farmers worldwide, is also reduced. Agricultural geographic information systems using geomatics technology enable farmers to anticipate current and future fluctuations in rainfall, temperature, crop output, etc. Map and project. Agricultural mapping is becoming more and more crucial day by day for the monitoring and management of land and irrigation of agricultural land. It facilitates agricultural development and rural development. Accurate mapping of geographical and geological features of agricultural land can help scientists and farmers to create more efficient farming techniques. As farmers are able to take more corrective steps in the form of better utilization of fertilizers, treatment of pest and weed infestations, protection of natural resources, etc., we get higher quality food production. A working GIS integrates these 5 key components: hardware, computer, software, data, people and methods. GIS, technology, advantages and disadvantages. Here are some benefits of using GIS technology. It has the ability to improve organizational integration. GIS will then integrate software, hardware and also data in order to capture, analyze, manage and thus display all types of information that is geographically referred to. GIS can also view, question, comprehend, visualize, and interpret the data in different ways to generate relationships, trends, and patterns in the form of globes, maps, and reports. Geographic information system should help answer questions and solve problems by looking at the data in a way that can be shared easily and quickly. GIS technology can also be integrated into the framework of any enterprise information system. And there are many more jobs. On the other hand, there are also some disadvantages that you may experience due to the use of the GIS technology. And some of the disadvantages are the following. GIS technology can be considered as expensive software. It also requires enormous amount of data input required to be practical for some other tasks, and therefore all the more data to be entered. Since the Earth is round, there would be geographical errors that increase as you get on a larger scale. GIS can lead to costly errors once the real estate agents have to interpret the GIS card or the design of the engineer around the utility lines of the GIS. There may be errors in initiating efforts to fully implement the GIS. Remote sensing. Remote sensing is the process of detecting and monitoring the physical properties of an area by measuring the reflected and released radiation at a distance, typically from satellite or airplane. Special cameras collect images that can be seen remotely, which can help researchers observe things on Earth. Remote sensing can provide data that can identify and monitor crops. If this data is organized in a geographic information system, GIS, along with other parameters, it becomes an important tool for making decisions about crops and agricultural strategies. Applications to remote sensing in agriculture. Forecast of crop production. Remote sensing is used to predict the expected crop production and yield over a given area and to determine how much of the crop will be harvested under specific conditions. Assessment of crop damage and crop progress. In case of crop damage or crop progress, remote sensing technology can be used to penetrate the agricultural land and determine exactly how much of a given crop has been damaged. Analysis of horticulture, harvesting systems. Remote sensing technology has also played an important role in the analysis of different crop planting systems. This technology is mainly used in the horticultural industry where flower growth patterns can be analyzed and a prediction can be made from the analysis. Crop identification. Remote sensing has also played an important role in the identification of crops, especially in cases where the crop under observation is mysterious or shows some mysterious characteristics. The data of the crop are collected and taken to the laboratories where different aspects of the crop, including the crop culture, are studied. Estimation of crop hectares. Remote sensing also played a very important role in estimating the agricultural land on which a crop was planted. Evaluation of crop conditions and stress detection. Remote sensing technology plays an important role in assessing the health condition of each crop and the extent to which the crop has the resistance to stress. Identification of planting and harvest dates. Due to the predictive nature of remote sensing technology, farmers can now use remote sensing to observe a variety of factors, including weather patterns and soil types, to predict the planting and harvesting seasons of each crop. Modeling and estimation of crop yields. Using remote sensing, farmers and experts can also predict the expected crop yield of a given agricultural land by estimating the quality of the crop and the extent of the agricultural land. It is then used to determine the total expected yield of the crop. What is a yield monitor and yield charting? Yield monitoring and mapping. Yield monitoring equipment was introduced in the early 1990s and is increasingly regarded as a conventional practice in modern agriculture. The pioneers of precision agriculture have been compiling yield data for a number of years and have explored different ways of interpreting and processing this data. Yield mapping concept. Yield mapping refers to the process of collecting convincing data on crop yields and characteristics, such as moisture content, while harvesting the crop. Various methods are used to use a variety of sensors to map crop yields. The basic components of a grain yield chart system include grain flow sensor, determine the grain volume harvested. Grain view sensor, compensates for the grain moisture variability. Grain elevator speed sensor, used by some mapping systems to improve the accuracy of the grain flow. Measurements. GPS antenna, receive satellite signal. Yield monitor screen with GPS receiver, transfer and collect data. Sensor for head of land, distinguish the measurements recorded during turns. Travel speed sensor determines the distance the harvester travels during a certain log interval. Sometimes the speed is measured with a GPS receiver or a radar or ultrasonic sensor. Each sensor must be properly calibrated according to the user manual. Calibration converts the signal from the sensor to physical parameters. During harvest, a separate binary log file is created to record the output of all sensors as a function of time. This file can be converted to a text format or displayed as a map using the yield monitor provider software. Processing of yield cards. The return calculated on each field location can be displayed on a map using a geographic information system. GIS software package. A return monitor.
Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more future educational videos.
Topic: Irrigation and water supply. At the end of this lesson you should be able to understand the following concepts. Overhead irrigation systems. Center pivot irrigation. Movable sprinklers. Wheel line irrigation. Portable sprinkler irrigation system. Introduction. Learning content that was dealt with in grade 10, 11 and term 1 grade 12 must link in with the current content that will now be dealt with. Grade 10 Irrigation and Water Supply. Grade 11 Irrigation and Water Supply. The purpose of this lesson is to cover content associated with the various macro irrigation systems. Concepts and skills. Irrigation and water supply. Reasons for irrigation in SA. Optimal plant production can only take place if there is sufficient water available. Large parts of SA are subject to hot and dry climatic conditions, high evaporation and low and erratic rainfall. Irrigation is needed to replace or supplement rainfall. Irrigation problems. Competition for surface water rights. Use of underground water resources. Ground subsidence. Too little water supply or irrigation that provides just enough water to the plant, e.g. drip line irrigation, causes brackish soil which leads to the accumulation of toxic salts on the soil surface in areas with high evaporation. This necessitates rinsing or drainage to get rid of the salts. Over-irrigation due to poor distribution or management can waste water and chemicals and cause water pollution. Deep drainage, due to too much irrigation, can cause the water table to rise and in some cases lead to brackishness. Irrigation with brackish water or water with a high salt content can damage the soil structures. Basic procedure to follow when selecting a pump for a new irrigation system. Decide on a type of pump that will work best for your needs. Rotary screw pump, centrifugal pump, submersible pump, turbine pump, jet pump, etc. Determine your flow, LPM and pressure needs. Look at the models of the available pumps and choose a preliminary pump that will meet your needs. Design a preliminary irrigation design. It must be designed for the flow and pressure that the pump must deliver. If you have a preliminary design, it will be easier to choose a suitable pump. Will another pump lower your irrigation cost or better match your irrigation design? Go back to the pump selection process and reevaluate it. Make your final choice. Go back to your design again. Could it possibly be changed to meet your final choice? Make the necessary changes. Aspect information. Layout plan, layout of the blocks and detailed plans of each block. 2 copies should be provided, 1 for installation purposes and 1 for records. Cost estimate, price estimate of the total project and each phase of the project if applicable. Quantity list of items needed per block. Detailed sketches of equipment to facilitate installation. Tap connections, drawings of the taps with the required fittings. Filter banks, drawings of the complete filter setup with manifolds and taps. Pumps, drawings of the pump with the required equipment. Pump curve, a pump curve indicating the service point for use so that the pump's efficiency and the power required can be easily read. The pump curve is also needed if the existing irrigation system is to be expanded in the future. Final technical report, a report that describes the resources that are part of irrigation development and briefly describes the operation of the system. Maintenance and management manual. A complete manual on how to manage and maintain the irrigation system is necessary to ensure that the performance of the installed irrigation system is always optimum. SOBI design form technical design specifications to which the design complies. Other important information needed. 1. Level of expertise of designer. The level of expertise of the designer, for example, is a certified SOBI designer or professionally registered engineer or technician. 2. General system information. The expected life of the system. Safety factors built into the system. Expansion possibilities of the system. Additional equipment that should be available on the farm to replace faulty equipment. 3. Description of the proposed irrigation system. Groundwater properties of the soil being irrigated. Type of irrigation system used for irrigating the different crops. Type of radiator proposed and what is the recommended working pressure, spacing and delivery of the radiator. The capacity and quality of the water source available for development. The suitability of the water for irrigation of the specific crop. Four. Design parameters. Design parameters used. The flow rate of the water in the main line. The recommended working pressure at the tapping points. The design distribution coefficients. The gross application rate of the system compared to the infiltration rate of the soil. 5. Scheduling planning. The readily available water in the effective root area. The gross irrigation needs of the different crops being irrigated. Blocks to be irrigated together. System cycle length and stand/revolution time. The system capacity in mm/day and how it compares with the information obtained from a crop expert. 6. Equipment. A pump curve on which the service point is indicated. The pumping time within the Eskom peak rate time. The energy cost per hectare per year. Filtering required, if any, and what type was provided. Injection pumps provided, if any, and their capacity. The provision of a flow meter and the requirements with regard to installation. Provision of adequate air inlet and air outlet valves in the system. The status of water battle. 7. Guarantees. Guarantees of the individual components of the system and what it includes and excludes. Guarantee that the system will function according to the design parameters. Availability of the proposed irrigation equipment when faulty equipment needs to be replaced. Who and how will be determined whether the system meets the design specifications, in other words, how will it be tested. Equipment that should be kept as emergency supplies. A written undertaking confirming that the system complies with the ARC ILI and SOBI norms and if not, where deviations occur. Overhead irrigation. Water is pumped under pressure and spreads to the plant from a flat sprinkler. This can be connected to an overhead aluminum pipe network or can simply be connected at the top. Since it is difficult to distribute water evenly, a more expensive overhead system is better. This system, which moves across the length of the land, can more easily control water distribution. Another overhead irrigation system is the cannon irrigation system, which, as its name suggests, shoots water into the air and over land. A large water cannon sprayer can cover a large area or land without being moved. Overhead irrigation systems are useful when watering large areas. Some can be disconnected and moved to another country without effort. Circular Irrigation Center Pivot https://u2.be/levwk_viok https://u2.be/2bulpvh3euq https://u2.be/oivjuq0noc0 Rotation type pivot irrigation nozzle. First hub was designed and built in the USA in 1949. First commercial hub was available in 1953. Pivot irrigation is a form of sprinkler irrigation consisting of pipe segments, usually galvanized steel or aluminum, that are coupled and supported by struts, mounted on wheel towers with lengthwise spreaders. This system moves around and gets water from the irrigation point in the middle. These systems are used where the terrain is flat. Newer irrigation systems have pipes that hang as seen in the photo that follows. Gearbox of a pivot point https://u2.be/dfhkbrqn64 https://u2.be/wr6kw phase sy. How is a pivot point made? https://u2.be/nd4zdnud5i4. Adjustable irrigation sprinkler head. Basic principles and operation. Most of the pivot irrigation systems have spreaders that overhang a U-shaped pipe called a gooseneck. It is connected from the top of the pipe with spray heads a few feet, maximum, above the plants. This limits evaporation loss. Water supply takes place from boreholes or dams by means of pumps. Water is pumped in at the pivot point, after which it is fed through the length of the pipe. Sprinklers are mounted at the bottom of the supply pipe that do the irrigation. The towers on which the pipes rest are fitted with hydraulically driven wheels. The towers on which the pipes rest are provided with wheels that are driven by electric motor. The system moves slowly in one direction around the pivot point according to a scheduled program from the control panel installed at the pivot point. Most modern systems use GPS technology and the system is largely automated. Center pivot irrigation system. What is a center pivot? A center pivot is a mechanized sprinkler system that irrigates crops in a circular pattern around a pivot point. A span of pipe is supported on an A-frame with wheels and the pipe transports water to attached sprinklers. Pivots are capable of applying water, fertilizer, chemicals, and herbicides over large areas of land to increase yields, while saving time and cost. Different parts of the center pivot. 1. Pivot point. The pivot point anchors the machine to a permanent location in the field. Not only is it an anchor, but it also houses a system of subcomponents that contribute to the overall functionality of the pivot. These important subcomponents are the pivot legs, riser pipe, pivot swivel, control panel, J-pipe, and collector rings. A. Pivot legs. The pivot legs hold up the pivot point and give the machine its structure. The 4 pivot legs are typically bolted to a concrete pivot pad, providing support. B. Riser pipe. The riser pipe is connected to the first span through the pivot swivel. The purpose of the riser pipe is to supply water to the rest of the center pivot irrigation machine. C. Pivot swivel. The pivot swivel is an elbow-shaped fitting that connects the riser pipe to the first span. D. Control panel. The control panel is mounted and accessed at the pivot point. The control panel gives the machine commands to start, stop, move in reverse, pump water, and many other functions. More on this component later. E. J-pipe. The J-pipe houses the power and control circuit wires. These wires move through the J-pipe to the collector ring assembly. F. Collector ring. The collector ring assembly is made up of stationary brass rings with contact brushes that rotate around them. This assembly makes it possible for a continuous flow of electricity to run through the machine as it rotates around the pivot point. 2. Control panel. The control panel is the brains of the operation. It allows the operator to control the entire machine by sending commands to tower boxes mounted on each drive unit. The control panel controls the stopping, starting, forward and reverse movements of the pivot, water usage, and much more. 3. Spans. Spans are the backbone of the whole center pivot structure. Spans consist of pipes that transfer water to the field via the pivot sprinkler package. The span pipes are supported by trussing in the drive units. 4. Drive units. The drive units and the supporting structure are also known as towers. They provide clearance above the crop for the spans and control the movement of the machine. Each drive unit consists of a drive motor, gearboxes, wheels, and an electrical control box known as a tower box. 5. Tower boxes. Each drive unit has a tower box that uses various components to control pivot movement and alignment. Span cables carry 120 and 480 volts of alternating current, VAC, to each tower box. Tower boxes then send 480 VAC to the drive motors when signaled to move by the 120 VAC control circuit. Advantages of the center pivot point. Little labor required. Low maintenance. Very convenient. Easily adaptable to changes. Very effective. Bring water savings. Save a lot of energy and time. Important aspects to consider when purchasing a center pivot point. The diameter of the supply pipe. The length and number of towers required. The drive system. The adequate water supply at the pivot point. The method of sprinkling. Sprinkle irrigation https://u2.be/dxkb_gp7mty. In sprinkler and overhead irrigation, water is distributed in pipes from one or more central locations in the country to overhead high-pressure sprayers or cannons. A system that has overhead sprinklers or cannon heads is called fixed-set irrigation. Creep irrigation https://u2.be/0dw5-4bsg0 https://u2.be/rwxcxuz-y. Sprayers can also be connected to moving platforms connected to a water source with a pipe. Automatic wheel systems known as crawler sprayers can be used on small farms, sports fields, parks, and unsupervised cemeteries. Most use a length PVC pipe on a steel drum. As the pipe turns around the drum by the pressure of the water or a small engine, the irrigation system moves across the land. Once the irrigation system is back at the starting point, turn it off. This is known as a crawler sprayer. Lateral move irrigation. Lateral movement, side roll, wheel line irrigation. Pipes, each with a wheel about 1.5 m in diameter, permanently connected to the center with spreaders over the length, are connected to each other on the side of the land. Water is connected to one side by means of a large pipe. After sufficient water has been applied, the pipe is removed and the system moves 10 m further by hand or with a built-in mechanism. The pipe is reconnected. The process is repeated until the other side of the country is reached. The system is cheaper to install than a pivot point, but is labor intensive and the amount of water is limited to what the system can carry. Most systems use 4 or 5 inch, 130 mm diameter aluminum pipes. One feature of a side roller set is that it consists of easily disengaged sections. It is used for small lands or lands with an unusual shape as found in hilly or mountainous parts, or parts where labor is cheap. Irrigation software https://u2.be/w0bybwadf0 or https://u2.be/wal-fobs9m. What is irrigation software? Smart irrigation software allows farmers who are involved in irrigation activities to optimize water usage. The software is able to regulate water levels depending on various factors such as weather predictions and soil moisture levels. Controls, zones and valves https://u2.be/iczdqwg6crc https://u2.be/pf9wtnco4hk. Most irrigation systems are divided into zones. A zone is a single irrigation valve and one or more sprayers connected by pipes. Irrigation systems are divided into zones because there is usually not enough pressure and flow available to use the spreaders for an entire yard or sports field. Each zone has a solenoid valve that is controlled by the irrigation control mechanism. The irrigation regulator is either a mechanical or an electrical device that sends a signal to a zone to turn on at a certain time and stay on for a certain time. A smart control system is a system that can make water adjustments itself as conditions change. It uses data from previous weather conditions in the local area, soil sample sensors, water potential and water content, rain sensor, or in more sophisticated systems satellites that send information to weather stations, or a combination of these. Irrigation valve. https://u2.be/5rockxhxorsw https://u2.be/6yards/ihwvnm. An irrigation valve regulates the direction in which water flows in an irrigation system. These valves are found in the irrigation systems of crop production, parks, golf courses, and lawns. They help control water in above ground as well as underground systems. Irrigation flow meters https://u2.be/zq81ykjk. What is an irrigation flow meter? A flow meter accurately measures the amount of water volume applied. An accurate flow meter is an essential tool to practicing good irrigation scheduling. The two most common types of flow meters for irrigation are electromagnetic and propeller. What is an irrigation flow meter? A flow meter accurately measures the amount of water volume applied. An accurate flow meter is an essential tool to practicing good irrigation scheduling. The two most common types of flow meters for irrigation are electromagnetic and propeller. Irrigation sprinkler. A sprinkler applies water to a land with the effect of rain. Most sprinkler irrigation systems use pipes with water under pressure, which then escapes through the nozzle heads and is dropped on the ground. The basic goal is to let water through, but the types may differ. People considering a spreader should consider how large the area to be irrigated is as well as what the shape of the land is. Obstructions such as trees and rocks will require extra work to wet them. How deeply the soil must be wetted, as well as the time and labor required for the system must be taken into account. A spreader is a spreading device that is connected to the tip of a water pipe. The head is the device through which the water is distributed. There are different types of spray heads available. It depends on where the sprayer is going to be used, with a special design for overhead sprayer heads. The nozzle head is quite small and is connected to a nozzle connector with a central ring for the flow of water. The top of the sprayer is arranged round with fins or thin blades in the round. When the nozzle is activated, the water flows through the nozzle head where it changes from a stream to a circular pattern. The water application is designed to maximize the irrigation area. There are two common types of sprinkler heads, lawn and firefighting systems. In both cases, the requirements are the same: the water must be distributed without any human assistance. Through good planning and design, it is possible to wet the entire area. Lawn spray heads can be sunk into the ground and shot up again by the pressure of the water when the system is activated, and can also be fixed above the ground. In a lawn spray system, there are two types of heads. A nozzle head is designed to deliver a large amount of water in a short period of time. https://u2.be/hgcyvzllbc. A rotating sprinkler head sprays water at a slower speed and covers a larger area over a longer period of time. Used in large areas that need regular watering due to soil and climatic conditions. A sprinkling head is designed with a moving arm that forces the water to follow a circular motion. The fire extinguisher, https://u2.be/o-ylvagYC0w. The fire extinguisher is the spreader head that is attached to the ceiling, with the top of the head facing off. Inside the sprayer is a heat-sensitive mechanism or a two-piece metal connector held together by an alloy. The heat-sensitive mechanism or metal lies transversely to the top of the head and functions as a plug to keep the opening closed. Activities/assessment. Activities. When will sprinkler irrigation be preferred over flood irrigation? When water supply is poor. When the surface gradient can lead to erosion. Infiltration rate not constant. Drainage problems. Not high cost of leveling land. Sprinkler irrigation consists of 6 primary parts. List these primary parts. Engine/electric motor. Pump. Pipes. Sprayers. Control box. Water flow meter. Name 2 drugs that should never be administered through a pivot point. Give reason for each. Insecticides or fertilizers with a high acid content will cause the pipes to wear out. Fertilizer with large particles will clog the opener's openings. Name an electronic method for the farmer to communicate with the pivot point so that it can be activated or stopped over long distances. Mobile cell phone. Briefly describe the precautionary measures that must be in place to prevent the pivot point from falling. When one of the wheels gets stuck or the electric motor that controls the wheel breaks. When the system goes out of line, a safety switch must cut off the electricity to the wheels to prevent it runs forward. The spreaders in the system can be easily blocked with debris or rust in the pipes. How can this? Waste material is removed in the pipes without disconnecting the whole system. The tap on the tip of the system must be open so that all pieces of impurities can flush out of it. The tap must be closed again so that the system can function again. Sprayers form part of the irrigation system. What is the function of a sprayer head? Distribute water evenly over large areas. Name 2 effective materials used to make the spray heads as in the picture and name 1 advantage of each material used. Metal, copper, galvanized iron. Galvanized metal were not so easy. Plastic cannot rust. Learners can use previous year's NOV grade 12 papers to study sample questions.
Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more future educational videos.
Topic: Tools and equipment. At the end of this lesson you should be able to understand the following concepts: equipment, tools, mechanized implements and systems. Harvesting and crop processing machines / equipment, identification, operation and basic components. Front-loading excavator. Silage cutters. Harvesters. Hammer mill. Introduction. Learning content that was dealt with in grade 10, 11 and term 1 grade 12 must link in with the current content that will now be dealt with. Grade 10 safety. Grade 11 safety. Grade 12 safety. The purpose of this lesson is to cover content associated with harvest and crop processing machines / equipment. Concepts and skills. Harvesting and crop processing machines / equipment. Identification, operation and basic components. Feed handling equipment. Front loader excavators. Many farmers use front-loading excavators to move and stack large round bales. Be careful when handling large round bales or any heavy load with a backhoe loader so that you can prevent the backhoe loader from tipping over and the bale rolling over you. It is extremely important that the size of the tractor and backhoe properly match the size and weight of the bales being handled. The change in the tractor's center of gravity due to the additional weight of the bale can also cause the tractor to reverse. In the raised position, the tractor is less stable and the potential for side rollover increases. Now visualize the tractor on a slope with 2 wheels on the downhill side and 2 wheels on the uphill side. When the bale is raised high, the center of gravity becomes higher and the potential for the tractor to roll down the hill increases. The same phenomenon is observed with a shower / type truck. Have you ever noticed that no shower / type truck operator would tip / dump the truck on a slope? The chance for a backhoe to fall to the side increases when a load is carried on slightly rough terrain. The forward shift of the center of gravity causes the weight of the rear wheels to shift to the front, making it much easier for the rear tire to bounce off the ground when driving over bumps or holes. The additional weight on the front tires may also exceed the load capacity of the axle and tires. A loss of traction occurs when weight is transferred from the rear tires during bale handling. This can be a problem when moving bales up a slope or on wet ground. Loss of traction can lead to a loss of braking ability on all surfaces. Backhoe safety tips. Never walk or work under a raised backhoe. Lift or lower the front loader's arms slowly and gradually. Provision must be made for the extra length of the front loader. When turning turns, be careful when handling loose or shifting loads. Never move a heavy load as long as people are in the work area. Stay away from the outer edge when working on high embankments and slopes. Look for overhead wires and obstacles when lifting the front loader. Carry the load low and look for obstructions on the ground. Always use the recommended amount of counterweights to ensure good stability. Add the recommended wheel ballast or rear weight. Operate the front loader excavator only from the operator's seat. Adjust the wheels to the widest recommended settings to increase stability. Do not carry any person on the front loader, bucket or attachments. Lower the front loader when parked or serviced. Make sure that the parked front loader excavator is on a firm, level surface and that all safety devices are on. Visually inspect for hydraulic leaks and brakes, missing or malfunctioning parts, and make necessary repairs. Under pressure, escaping hydraulic oil can have enough force to penetrate the skin, which can cause serious personal injury. Injuries due to oil penetrating the skin are very difficult to treat. Use a piece of cardboard or paper to look for pinch leaks. Before disconnecting hydraulic pipes, the entire hydraulic pressure system must be relieved. Make sure anyone handling the front-loading excavator is aware of safe operating system practices and potential hazards. Extending the teeth of a front-loading excavator may seem like a great way to solve the problem, but when done, the tractor's center of gravity is moved forward. Extra load is placed on the front loader, hydraulic system and tractor front. All tractors used to handle bales must be equipped with rollover protection structures, such as a protective cab or a roll bar with a hood. Tractor operators must wear seat belts at all times when the tractor is in operation, regardless of the task being performed. Silage cutters. Safety precautions. Do not allow people or animals to come near the blades or working parts of the machine while it is working. Make sure all safety devices are in place and in working order. No person other than the operator may ride or climb on the machine. Procedure for preparing work. All grease points must be thoroughly greased. All straps or chains must be set to the correct tension. Make sure all parts are working properly by working them slowly. Replace all worn parts immediately, especially the cutting blades. Service according to manufacturer specifications. Lift up all fabric screens. Make sure there is no damage to blades and that they are sharp. Harvesters. Role of computers and satellite positioning systems in the modern harvester. Computers help you determine the yield at each specific location in the country. Computers help you spot problems in the mechanics of the harvester that prevent corn from being wasted. Help identify nutritional deficiencies in your country. Help identify problem areas in your maize field. Harvesting maize with a harvester. The machine cuts the whole plant and feeds it to the threshing machine. The hammers, sieves and blowers separate the chaff from the grain. Grain is collected in the harvester storage bin. When full, the maize is dumped in a truck and transported to the maize agent or buyer. Cough or maize residues can be collected for feed. Problems that may arise. Loss of maize kernels due to incorrectly set fans. Threshers/hammers breaks the kernels. Too many foreign particles. Mechanical problems. Cannot harvest when it has rained and the maize is wet. Benefits of a harvester. A very quick way to gather your harvest from the land. Very reliable method of harvesting. Economic. Labor savings. Accurate record keeping. Computers do the whole harvesting process with little input from the manager. Single action. Hand-picked. The cobs are picked by hand and placed in bags. It is then transported to a central location, where the threshing machine removes the kernels from the cobs. Placed in bags with a net mass of 70 kilograms. Why it is important to fix a harvester. If not set correctly, kernel losses may occur due to kernels that are not removed from the stalks, or the fans blow out the kernels. If the drum speed is not set correctly, the harvesters can break the kernels. Hammer mill. Factors in buying. Sturdy construction. Wearing parts must be easily replaceable. Rotor housing must close tightly. Size of the hopper/inlet opening. Meet volume needs. Parts. 1. Base, support the hammer mill. 2. Body or framework, holds the pulleys and wear plates. 3. Cover, houses the rotor. 4. Hopper, helps with the feeding process. 5. Wind blower or fan, blow the ground feed through the screens. 6. Cyclone, separate the ground feed from the air and serves. Also as a dust release. 1. Screens or serve, determine the size of the final ground product. 2. Rotor, holds the hammers and fan. 3. Hammers, grind the feed. Installation. It must be installed in such a way that it can be handled with ease. It should be placed in a well-ventilated place. Feed must be able to be unloaded next to the hopper. Hammer mill should be placed near a feed mixer. Benefits of installing the machine on a level surface. The weight of the moving parts is evenly distributed over the bearings. The cyclone hangs flush with the blowpipe. It looks neat. Prevention of vibrations. Machines that vibrate excessively must be returned to the manufacturer. New sets of hammers should be checked to make sure their weight is the same. All hammers must be turned over or replaced at the same time. Hammers that have been turned over must be put back in their original places. Nothing should be added to or removed from the rotor. Run the hammer mill at the right speed. Hammer mill must be properly anchored. Main cause of metal degeneration, metal fatigue. Vibration. Wear and tear. Rust. Safety precautions. Make sure there are no loose objects inside the machine when it is turned on. Wear goggles. Do not use the machine if the rotor is out of balance. Drive mechanism must be shielded/covered. Use in a well-ventilated area. Small pieces of scrap metal should be kept away from feed. It could cause a spark which could lead to an explosion. Do not exceed capacity of machine. Do not stick hands and other objects into the rotor while it operates. Make sure rotor opening has a safety lid. Maintenance of the hammer mill. Regular lubrication. Hammers need to be replaced with the right kind. Hammer mill must be properly anchored. Power takeoff must be done correctly. Clean after each use. Screens and screens should be checked on a regular basis. Coupling to power takeoff shaft. Make sure all the anchor bolts of a static machine are tight. Make sure the cross couplings are well greased. Make sure the drive shaft shield is present and free of cracks. Make sure the drive shaft is as straight as possible.
Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more future educational videos.
Topic: Irrigation and water supply. At the end of this lesson you should be able to understand the following concepts. Irrigation scheduling. Reason. Method. Soil moisture measurement techniques and equipment used in conjunction with efficient water scheduling. Soil water potential. Soil moisture content. Septic tank. Introduction. Learning content covered in grade 12 terms 1 and 2. Safety. Structural material. Energy. Construction process. Tools, equipment, and systems. Concepts and skills. Irrigation scheduling https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=VJOGCK8WBKM. Irrigation scheduling is the process used by irrigation managers to control the application of water correctly. The purpose of irrigation scheduling is to apply enough water until the plant's roots are properly wet, but at the same time not waste water and then allow the soil to dry between applications so that air can enter the soil, but not so much that the plant stresses. Effective irrigation scheduling. Introduction. Irrigation scheduling consists of applying the right amount of water at the right time. With potatoes, farmers have disadvantages that include: too little water leads to a loss of grade, quality, and contract price. Too much water leads to a loss of water, electricity for pump, leaching of nitrogen, and waste of time. It also increases nitrogen requirements in the crops, fertilizer cost, and nitrogen loss to soil water. Land losses can be remedied. Too little or too much water can occur on a particular land in the same season. Scheduling methods. Farmers irrigate using one of the following criteria. Intuition. Calendar days from last rainfall or irrigation. Evaporation transpiration in crops. Soil water. Measurement of soil water or evaporation transpiration provides criteria for irrigation management. Evaporation transpiration is a flashy word used for the wasteful use of water. Soil water measurement techniques. Soil water can be measured by methods that can determine the soil water content and soil water potential. Soil water content is the amount of water per soil volume or the weight of dry soil. Soil water potential is the force required to remove the next water application from the soil. Soil water tension/stress measurement. Tensiometers https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=4 The measurement of soil water stress with tension meters or granular matrix sensors provides a measurement analog for the force required to extract water from the soil. The power is transferred from the atmosphere through the plant to the roots. Briefly describe water scheduling and give reasons for its use. It is the process used by irrigation managers to determine if the right amount of water is being applied for the right time. Save water. Not too little water. Not too much water. Name the equipment that can be used to determine or measure evaporation in a country. Evaporation pan. Measurement of soil moisture. It is important to know the soil moisture condition so that the grower can irrigate the plant at the right time to ensure that the required amount of moisture is in the soil for the plant's roots. Methods to measure soil moisture. To measure the soil moisture and ensure that the crops do not tolerate unnecessary stress and the producer suffers loss of production due to a shortage of available water in the soil for sustainable growth of plants. Different methods and tools are used to monitor, and the most commonly used for irrigation scheduling are the following: the neutron probe meter, gypsum block, tensiometer or aerometer, feel and appearance method, time domain reflectometry (TDR) probe. The neutron probe https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=FAJQCJTFBVK. The neutron probe measures soil moisture by dispersing neutrons in the surrounding soil. The instrument consists of a probe on the front of a cable connected to the meter box. The probe contains a fast neutron source, which may be a mixture of radium and beryllium or americanum and beryllium. Aluminum access tubes from 500 mm to 1000 mm long and 32 mm in diameter with closed bases are placed in the country where the readings are to be taken. For shallow-rooted and annual crops, shorter tubes will be used than for deep-rooted or perennial, long-term crops. The neutron probe is lowered into the access tube to the desired depth and fast neutrons are released. The neutrons then disperse into the ground. When these neutrons encounter the hydrogen atom of water, the speed of the neutrons is reduced and the rate meter counts the number of slower neutrons. The number of slower neutrons is proportional to the water molecules in the surrounding soil. By entering this information into the software, the moisture content of the soil becomes clear from a calibration curve indicating the counts of the slower neutrons. Advantages. Measurements are fast and continuous. The use of the neutron probe does not cause the soil to be disturbed. And a larger area, 200 mm to 400 mm around the pin tubes, than with other methods can be measured. Disadvantages. Using a neutron probe is expensive, uses a radioactive source and requires regular maintenance by specialized personnel. An accurate reading of the soil moisture of shallow soil is problematic because the fast neutrons can be delayed by other hydrogen atoms in organic matter, as well as atoms of trace elements normally present in the upper 200 mm soil. This causes the overestimation of soil moisture present. Gypsum, clay or burnt gypsum blocks. These rectangular resistance blocks are approximately 550 mm long, 375 mm wide and 20 mm thick. Gypsum, clay or burnt gypsum blocks are used to measure soil moisture by placing the blocks in the exact place where the soil moisture is to be measured and monitored. A pair of electrodes built into the blocks 20 mm apart. This method works on the conduction of electricity. When an electric current is sent through the two electrodes, the resistance to the flow of the electric current is proportional to the moisture content of the block. If the block is wet, the conductivity is high and the resistance is therefore low. Generally, the electrodes read about 400 to 600 ohms resistance at field capacity and about 50,000 at wilting point, when a plant can no longer extract the desired water from the ground to maintain itself. The lectures are done with a wheatstone bridge Bucos water bridge with dry cells. Place the gypsum block in undisturbed soil. Disadvantages. Gypsum blocks are not very reliable in wet soil. Tensiometer/aerometer. A tensiometer is an instrument that measures the tension at which water is held in the ground. It consists, at the tip, of an 8 cm ceramic or clay container attached to a protective metal or glass tube with a vacuum gauge at the top. The system is filled with water from an opening at the top of the tube and will saturate the porous clay tip. It is then corked by the vacuum meter when placed in the ground. Install the tensiometer by drilling a hole that is just wide enough so that the tube can be placed in the active root area of the crop. There should be no air gaps around the tip or tube. It should fit snugly. Moisture will be drawn out of the container as the soil around it dries. This creates a vacuum in the tube that is measured by the meter. Once the desired voltage is reached, the soil should be watered. The vacuum meter indicates the voltage values up to 1 atmosphere, but only reads up to 0.8 atmospheres. Advantages. A tensiometer is simple and easy to install so that soil moisture can be read in situ. It is useful for scheduling the irrigation of crops that often need to be watered at low stress. Disadvantages. Sensitivity of a tensiometer is only up to 0.85 atmospheres, while available soil moisture can be up to 1 atmosphere. A tensiometer is also more accurate in sandy soils than in heavy clay soils. Feel and appearance method https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=7yakp_gqeaa. If none of the above methods are available, this practical estimate of soil moisture can be used as a last resort. Soil of samples taken from the desired depths is pressed by hand and how it feels and what it looks like is taken into account. A disadvantage is that accurate, actual soil moisture measurement is not possible with this method. Time domain reflectometry, TDR, probes. Understand septic drains. https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=3dwg-al4ste. What is a septic tank? The septic tank serves as a settling tank where solids are collected and gradually broken down by microbial action. Certain of the solids are converted to liquids by the natural bacterial decomposition, although the remaining waste collects at the bottom as a layer of sludge. Additionally, a small percentage of the waste, mostly fats and oils, will be at the top of the bowl, tank, floats and forms a semi-solid foam. How does a septic tank work? The population in metropolitan areas, who have never had the experience to maintain a septic tank not or to pump the system empty again, will just pool their toilets. Those of us who live in more rural areas have been forced to learn more about maintenance and operation of the sewage treatment unit that is connected to our homes, namely the septic system. Usually a septic tank is connected to a drainage unit or leaching well of some kind. As properly maintained will keep a well-designed system almost forever. However, if it does not get the attention it needs, it can clog the drainage unit. This negligence can lead to costly maintenance and repair, which can even mean drainage pipes need to be replaced and can be very expensive. Design of the septic tank. Although the design of septic tanks differs, they all basically consist of a waterproof underground tank with 1 or 2 manholes or inspection holes, buried a few centimeters below the ground, to provide access for cleaning and inspections. Wastewater from the house flows into the tank through the inlet pipe near the top. It flows through an opening to an outflow pipe on the other side. The pipe may end in a large T-joint or a type of wall that prevents the effluent from flowing directly from one pipe to another. The incoming wastewater will be forced downwards with little water splashing and the solids will be allowed to sink downwards. Outgoing effluent is drawn from several centimeters below the topping of floating debris, grease, oil, foam, so That only liquid debris liquefied by bacterial action, which occurs at the bottom of the septic tank, which occurs at a later stage, will return, released in the drainage unit. Sewage processing components. A typical domestic sewage treatment unit consists of a domestic sewage system, septic tank, distribution box, and leaching unit or sewer. Domestic sewer system, the pipeline connecting the house and the drain and septic system. Septic tank. Untreated liquid household waste, sewage, will quickly deplete your absorption unit clogged if not treated properly. The septic tank provides this necessary treatment. When sewage enters the septic tank, the heavier solid particles will settle to the bottom of the tank, the lighter solid particles, fats, and greasy particles will partially decompose and rise to the surface and form a layer of foam. The solid particles that have descended to the bottom are broken down and form sludge. Septic tanks do not remove the bacteria and these releases cannot be considered safe. Distribution box. Serve to distribute the flow of the septic tank evenly over the drainage unit or leaching well. It is important that each ditch or well receives equal amounts of flow. This prevents one part of the system from overloading. Absorption unit. A system of narrow ditches partially filled with a bed of washed gravel or crushed stone in which a perforated pipe or loose open pipes are placed. The emissions from the septic tanks are distributed through these pipes in the ditches and the surrounding ground. The underground absorption unit must be the right size and built correctly. While leachate wells require less soil for installation, they should only be used where absorption units are not suitable and contamination of borehole water sources is not a hazard. Disposal bath. Works in a similar way to the septic systems. Sewage leaches through an open bottom and partition gate holes on the sides. These holes can also become clogged with excessive use and the introduction of disinfectants and other materials that can reduce the bacterial action. When the sewer operation lags behind, homeowners simply leave the system empty. Pumping out the system will only ensure temporary relief. The clogged pores in the soil will continue to exist, and the system will have to be pumped out again and again. Maintenance of septic tanks. Since solids will accumulate continuously on the bottom of the tank, it is necessary to pump out the tank from time to time. Remember that sludge is not biodegradable and will continue to accumulate until it overflows. The frequency with which it is pumped out will depend on the amount of wastewater moving through the system on a daily basis. The effectiveness will also depend on how often excess fats, peels and other similar waste enter the drain be thrown off. The more solid waste is thrown into the system, the faster the tank will fill up. Heavy inflow of water will also tend to fill the tank faster. It is therefore better not to add rubbish to the system when working with a septic tank, and water should not run continuously in basins and toilets. Treatment of septic tanks. https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=PZZGZ_KZT https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=6FRU3-X0. It is important to clean the septic tank regularly to prevent the sludge levels from becoming too high and to ensure that the solid material at the bottom and the semi-solid foam at the top can still flow through to the drainage system. A situation can easily arise where the drainage pipes and also the soil in which they drain will become clogged. Make sure there are always live bacteria in your system. The function of the bacteria is to decompose the organic waste in the system. If there are no bacteria in your system, the tank will only serve as a storage tank for your waste. It becomes filled and natural decomposition will not be able to take place. This is when the system gives in. Bacteria are destroyed by https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=ebkwpzhox_m. Excessive amounts of detergents, laundry waste, bleaches, household chemicals and alkaline drain cleaners. Garbage waste mixtures that significantly increase the number of solid particles collected. Rinsing away items that are not biodegradable, plastic, etc. Flush away excessive amounts of grease and fats that are biodegradable but a specific bacterium needed to break it down. Rinsing away cigarette butts, sanitary napkins that are also biodegradable but not necessarily decomposable. Too many people using a smaller/inadequate or broken system. If you have no bacteria in your system and you add enzymes, it simply will not help, and the system will still not work. Enzymes are only a catalyst for bacteria. If there are no bacteria in your system, then why use enzymes? From time to time you will need to add a 100% natural and living bacterium to your system. Do not add any bacteria to your system but consult a professional septic system expert. Optional bacteria may be added, which means the bacteria can be with or without oxygen survive. Make sure you understand that bacterial action occurs especially at the bottom of the septic tank. An optional bacterium will not be useful in situations where there is air and no air. Anaerobic conditions is not present. The bottom of the spicy tank does not have any free oxygen and will therefore need especially anaerobic bacteria. Pro-pump liquid live bacteria consist of cultures with optional and anaerobic bacteria. These bacteria are therefore manufactured as so-called friendly bacteria. The commercial potency of optional bacteria is non-harmful, non-corrosive, non-pathogenic. 100% natural, it is not a GMO or a mutation. Effective in aerobic and anaerobic conditions. Effective with or without light. Effective in environments with high or low acidity and low or high alkalinity. A shelf life of 3 to 5 years. Can be stored under all climatic conditions. When frozen, it retains its viability after thawed. Please note, your septic system does not pose any potential health hazards to you or your family. Accidents due to harmful gases have already taken place. All maintenance on your septic system should be discussed with your septic expert, and all other septic necessities should be done with such experts' advice before doing anything about it yourself.
Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more future educational videos.
Topic: Tools and equipment. At the end of this lesson you should be able to understand the following concepts. Components of the propulsion system of a vehicle, identification, description and purpose. Gearbox and types of gears. Clutch. Diff. Wheel locks, diff lock, wheel hub lock. Universal joints or cross couplings. Greasing points, and bearings. Financial implications related to equipment. Tractors. Purchase versus rental of tractors/equipment. Choosing a tractor. Standardization. Mechanization. Pneumatic and hydraulic tools, identification and basic operation. Compressor. Hydraulic press. Pneumatic tools. Hydraulic jack end. Spray painting equipment. Introduction. Learning content that was dealt with in grade 10, 11 and term 1 grade 12 must link in with the current content that will now be dealt with. Grade 11 Safety. Grade 12 Safety. Grade 12 Tools and Equipment. Grade 12 Tractor Systems. The purpose of this lesson is to cover content associated with components of a vehicle's propulsion system and pneumatic/hydraulic tools. Concepts and skills. Types of gears. Straight gear. Very noisy. Helical gear. Teeth run at an oblique angle over the outer surface of the gear. Advantages: hold long. Disadvantage: force to the side due to oblique angle of teeth, especially when heavily loaded. Double helical gear. Herringbone rat. The teeth run obliquely in both directions. Looks like a herringbone. Advantages: very little wear and tear. Disadvantage: cannot be used in gearboxes of cars, because it cannot enter from the side. Other types of gears. Types of gearboxes. Sliding gear type gearbox. Constantly incoming gearbox. Synchronized gearbox. Introduction. The gearbox of any vehicle, implement or Equipment plays an important role in the performance of the device. Gearboxes can be massive, large, complicated units to small simple gearboxes. In toy carts, gears are made of nylon, copper and hardened steel, depending on their application. Most equipment and vehicles on the farm are equipped with some type of gearbox. The purpose of the gearbox. The gearbox is usually in the first place the connection point with the primary drive component, whether an engine, electric motor or an external drive system. This connection point is usually provided with some type of coupler. The gearbox is driven by the primary drive component, which provides the momentum for the gears in the gearbox with the main drive shaft. The gearbox then provides drive to the component it needs to be able to perform the work, e.g., to turn the axle of a wheel or to turn the blades of the cutting machine. The primary purpose of the gearbox is therefore to be able to regulate and adapt the power provided by the driver to specific conditions and uses. Sliding type gearbox. Constantly incoming gearbox. Synchronized gearbox. The gearbox is also equipped with synchronizing rings that are placed between the gears. These rings are usually made of brass and thus helps with the smooth shifting of the gears when the tractor is at speed. Purpose of the clutch. The clutch is a component used to disconnect the drive system from the gearbox, equipment or device. Parts of the clutch. What are clutch linings made of? Asbestos. The basic operation. When the clutch is not activated, stepped on, the clutch plate is permanently pressed against the flywheel of the engine. If the gearbox is in gear, it is therefore connected to the engine. If the gearbox is in gear, it is therefore connected to the engine. The clutch plate that will break the clutch. The gearbox is no longer connected to the engine and gears can be shifted. When the clutch is released, the gearbox will be reconnected to the engine and move together if the engine is running. Move together if the engine is running. Do not drive because the gears are not engaged. The clutch plate is made of special material that can handle a lot of friction and torque. Reasons for installing a clutch on a tractor. Drive must be disengaged when shifting gears. Drive must be disengaged when the tractor is switched on. The clutch must be disconnected to increase engine speed and then give greater torque to the power takeoff shaft. Allow the operator to stop the tractor, belt pulley or power takeoff shaft without shutting down the engine. Characteristics of a good clutch. It should connect smoothly and not get caught, slip or shiver. It must be able to transfer the maximum load from the engine without slipping. When the clutch is disengaged, it must be completely disengaged and not prone to dragging. The clutch must be of such a nature that it can be easily disengaged by hand or foot. The friction material used on the clutch plate must not only be highly wear resistant but must also be able to withstand high temperatures. Types of clutches. Single plate clutch. Multi-plate clutch, hydraulic clutch. Claw clutch. Differential/diff. Name 3 reasons why diffusers are fitted in the rear axles of tractors/cars. Changing the direction of rotation. Speed reduction. Transmitted torque evenly distributed between the two rear wheels. 2. Describe the operation of the conventional differential when the tractor moves around a turn. When the tractor moves around a turn, all the wheels move around a common point. The outer wheels on the curve therefore tend to turn faster than the inner wheel. This means that the half-axle arm of the outer wheel rotates faster than that of the inner wheel. The difference in speed between these two axle arms causes the differential's conical gears to rotate about the individual axis. Since these small axles are attached to the casing and thus to the large gear, they rotate with it and still drive the rear wheels, despite the fact that they do not rotate at the same speed. What is the function of the final drive? Further decrease in speed. Increase torque/traction. Spare parts of the diff. Diff lock. A locking differential or differential lock is a variation on the standard motor differential. A locking differential can provide higher traction compared to a standard or open diff by limiting the two wheels on an axle at the same rotational speed, without taking into account the available grip or differences in resistance experienced at each wheel. A lockable diff is designed to overcome the limitation of a standard open diff by essentially locking both wheels together on an axle as if on a common axle. This forces both wheels to rotate in harmony, regardless of the grip or lack thereof available to the individual wheels. Application. Racing engines often use locking diffusers to maintain traction during a high-speed maneuver, or when accelerating under extreme conditions. Some utility vehicles such as trailers, forklifts, tractors and heavy equipment use locking diffusers to maintain traction, especially when driving on soft, muddy, or uneven surfaces. Four-wheel drive vehicles used for off-roading often uses a lockable diff to prevent that it gets stuck when driving on loose, muddy, or rocky terrain. Lockable diffusers are considered essential equipment considered for severe off-road conditions. Many such vehicles have a lockable diff on the central diff, between the front and rear axles, rear and front diff, or any combination of the three. Disadvantages. Because they do not work as well as standard diffusers, automatic locking diffusers are often responsible for increased band closure. Some older automatic locking diffusers are known for making a clicking or slamming sound, with locking and unlocking when the vehicle moves around corners. This is annoying for many drivers. Also, automatic locking diffusers will have the ability to affect the steering of a vehicle, especially if the diffuser locking mechanism is located in the front axle. Apart from tire abrasion when navigating high-friction, low-slip surfaces, it causes diff locks. Understeer, and if used on the front axle, increased power on the steering wheel will be required to vehicle to turn. Furthermore, automatic diff locking mechanisms can cause loss of control on ice, where an open diff would allow one wheel to turn and the other one to claw if it did not transmit power. Closing hubs 4x4. Where is the locking hub located? Lock hubs are located on the front wheels of your 4x4 vehicle. They look like innocent little gear discs in the middle of your front wheels, but there's a little more to them. The locking hub is, in essence, an axle divided in half, left and right. They work separately, spin free of each other and allow the drive of the rear axle to push them where you steer them. It's in two-wheel drive mode, just like in a rear-wheel drive car. Once unlocked, you do not have the ability to put your vehicle in 4WD. Universal joints / cross coupling / U-coupling. A cross coupling, U-coupling is a coupling or joint in a solid shaft that makes it possible to bend the shaft in any direction and is commonly used in shafts that transmit rotational motion. It consists of a pair of hinges located close to each other at a 90 degrees oriented angle and connected to each other by a cross axis. A configuration known as a dual cardan drive shaft clutch partially overcomes the problem of jerky rotation. This configuration uses two cross couplings connected by an intermediate shaft, with the second cross coupling in phase with the first cross coupling to cancel changing angular velocity. In this configuration, the angular velocity of the driven shaft will correspond to that of the drive shaft, provided that both the drive shaft and the driven shaft are at equal angles with respect to the intermediate shaft, but not necessarily at the same level, and that the two cross couplings are 90 degrees out of phase. This configuration is commonly used in rear-wheel drive vehicles, where it is known as a drive shaft. Applications. Typical applications of cross couplings include drive shafts, aircraft, appliances, control mechanisms, electronics, instrumentation, medical and optical devices, radios, sewing machines, textile machinery, and tool drives. Grease points and grease nipples / pump for applying grease to a grease nipple. Grease nipples are accessories that fit on mechanical systems to apply lubricants, usually greases, under moderate to high pressure using a grease gun. Grease nipples are rarely found on consumer goods, equipment or cars because maintenance-free products better suit the general public. They are still widely used on industrial, agricultural and mining equipment. Bearings. A bearing is a machine part that restricts relative movement between the moving parts to have only the desired movement. The design of the bearing can, for example, allow for free linear movement between the moving parts or free rotation about a fixed axis. Bearings are generally classified according to the type of action, the movements allowed, or the direction of the loads, forces, acting on the parts. The term lowered is derived from the verb to, where a bearing is a machine part that allows one part to carry another, that is, support it. The simplest bearings are lower surfaces, cut or shaped into a part, with varying degrees of control over the shape, size, roughness and location of the surface. Other bearings are installed in separate devices in a machine or machine part. Purpose of an bearing. Reducing friction in bearings is often important for efficiency, reducing wear, facilitating use at a higher speed, and avoiding overheating and premature failure of the bearing. Maintenance and lubrication. Many bearings require periodic maintenance to prevent premature breakdown, although some bearings such as liquid or magnetic bearings require little maintenance. Most bearings in high-cycle applications need to be lubricated and cleaned regularly, and require regular adjustment to reduce the effects of wear and tear. The working life is often much better if the bearing is kept clean and well lubricated. Uses for bearings. Hard disks. Roller skates. Flywheel energy storage systems. Guitar. The Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. Earthquake-resistant buildings in San Francisco. Wheel bearings. Engines. Fishing reel. Economics associated with agricultural technology. Financial implications related to tractors, equipment and tools. Purchase versus rental of tractors/equipment. Choosing a tractor. Standardization. Mechanization. Expenses and costs. Fixed expenses, current expenses, work or floating capital. Depreciation. Interest on capital invested. Accidental expenses. Financing costs. Repair work. Oil. Fuel. Smear work. Supervision expenses. Parts. Fuel. Wages. Repairs, contract work. Transport. Factors to consider before buying a new tractor. Points to consider before buying a used tractor. Factors in terms of drive. If a tractor's price is reasonable, the following information must be obtained from the seller. Power or tractor power. kW. Availability of parts and services locally. Rigidity of construction. Simplicity of control. Mechanisms. Ease of driving. How established and reliable is the agent? Are parts readily available? Is the tractor a good model in the area? What warranty or service facilities are available from the agent? Collect information about the tractor. Type of use. Maximum drive. Texture of the soil. Type of tractor. The reason why the tractor is sold. The type of work for which the tractor was used. The year model. The working hours of the tractor. Multipurpose/versatility. Reliability and durability. Reliability. Price/kW. Operating cost. Look at the mechanical parts of the tractor. Take a test drive. How many working hours are on the tractor and is the odometer still working? Once the price has been agreed upon, it will be determined whether it is more economical to buy a new tractor or used tractor. What repairs were done? Who was the driver? Engine problems. Excessive engine smoke. Blue smoke indicates oil consumption and that the engine can no longer be in very good condition. Excessive black smoke indicates that the injector pump will need attention. Check the oil level before and after the ride. Note if there was oil consumption. Look for oil leaks after the ride. Note the oil pressure gauge. It should remain constant at the highest pressure reading. Symptoms indicated by different color smoke on a diesel engine. Black smoke, white smoke, blue smoke. Incorrect fuel injection timing. Dirty or worn fuel injectors. Too much fuel. Faulty turbocharger or turbo leg pressure booster. Faulty or dirty exhaust gas recovery system (EGR). Incorrect valve clearance. Wrong fuel/air ratio. Dirty or limited air cleaning systems. Engine overload. Poor fuel content. Cool operating temperatures. Operation at high altitude/mountains. Incorrect fuel injection. Timing. Defective fuel. Injectors. Low cylinder. Compression. Worn valve guides, or seals. Cylinder walls and/or piston rings worn. Cylinder glaze. Piston ring burns. Wrong grade oil. Oil is too thin and runs past rings or valves. Fuel dilutes the oil, making it too thin. Excessive buildup of carbon in combustion and exhaust openings. Cooling system. Check the water level in the radiator before the test drive. Wait until the engine has cooled down just after the test drive. Check the water level again to see if there has been water loss. Carefully monitor the temperature gauge during the test drive. Excessive fluctuations can indicate a problem. The temperature should remain fairly constant after the engine reaches operating temperature. Check for water leaks on the test drive while the engine is still hot. Check water pipes and make sure the radiator is not damaged. 1. Radiator. 2. Upper water house, in. 3. Radiator pipe. 4. Lower water house, out. 5. Thermostat. 6. Thermostat housing. 7. Electric radiator fan. 8. Thermal timer. General observations. Test steering wheel and wheels for excessive play. Condition of the battery. Condition of the panel / instruments and meters. Condition of the tires. The operation of hydraulic components. The condition of the electrical wiring and lights. The action of the brakes and emergency brake. What is meant by standardization of farm implements? All farm implements and tractor parts must meet certain requirements, making them easier to replace and manageable and so that it can be used back and forth. Name the benefits of standardization. Any implement can be used with any tractor. The same machine and parts can be used on different tractors. Parts can be purchased from any agent instead of just one. Parts can be supplied to the farmer relatively cheaply, due to mass production. A reduced quantity of spare parts can be kept in stock for maintenance and service purposes. If a farmer decides to buy a new tractor, he will not need to take a special course to put it in. To maintain mechanization in agriculture. It provides technology and advances in agriculture instead of using equipment pulled by animals to improve production, quality and yield. What is the purpose of mechanization? To help the farmer produce better, faster, cheaper and more cost-effective. Pneumatic and hydraulic tools identification. Identify the following pneumatic tools commonly used in the world store.
Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more future educational videos.
Topic: Tools and equipment. At the end of this lesson you should be able to understand the following concepts: equipment, tools, mechanized implements and systems. Harvesting and crop processing machines / equipment, identification, operation and basic components. Cutting machines. Baling machines. Introduction. Learning content that was dealt with in grade 10, 11 and term 1 grade 12 must link in with the current content that will now be dealt with. Grade 10 Safety. Grade 11 Safety. Grade 12 Safety. The purpose of this lesson is to cover content associated with harvest and crop processing machines / Equipment. Concepts and skills. Harvesting and crop processing machines/equipment, identification, operation and basic components. Hay/fodder cutting machines. Disc cutting machines. Disc cutters are useful but dangerous equipment, with the potential for serious to cause injuries. The blades turn against a high speed of 2000 to 4000 rpm. The speed at which the tip of the blade can move range from 160 to 300 km per hour. For safety, must the operator know how to move the blade quickly, disconnect and stop the engine. Safety tips for handling a cutting machine. Read and understand the operator's manual to become familiar with the machine. Remove all foreign objects from lawns before you start mowing. Use the recommended PPE, personal protections equipment including tight-fitting clothing. Disconnect the blade before turning on the machine. Keep all screens and security measures in place. Never disconnect any safety switches. Never refuel the lawnmower when the engine is hot or switched on. Store petrol in an approved container with the correct label. Switch off the car before cleaning the area under the deck. Disconnect the spark plug or electrical plug before troubleshooting or repairing the lawnmower. Perform routine maintenance as recommended by the manufacturer's schedule. Keep a running lawnmower away from bystanders and pets. Safety tips for push lawnmowers. Start lawnmower with feet firmly and in a safe position. Safety tips for electric lawnmowers. Never use an electric lawnmower on wet grass. Safety tips for reachable lawnmowers. Keep both feet on the footrest of the lawnmower. No extra passengers on any lawnmowers. Be aware of the power takeoff shaft. Cutter. A lawnmower can easily turn over. Push the mower away from the operator when falling over. Never leave a walking lawnmower unattended. Make sure the area is free of loose items. Foreign objects in the cutting area can be thrown through the lawnmower. Proper PPE for the cutting process. Sturdy steel-toe shoes are highly recommended during cutting process. Long pants and long-sleeved shirts protect against flying debris, grass clippings, and wear safety eye protection or goggles, especially when near solid objects such as gravel driveways are cut. Overprotection is strongly recommended during cutting. Maintenance. Oil regularly, grease. Sharpen all blades. Make sure all screens are in good working order and in place. Replace weather tires. Make sure all the straps are tight. Repair or replace all broken parts immediately. Baling machines. Two types of baling machines. Square baler, ram, making rectangular bales, and the round baler making cylindrical bales. Operation of the ram-type baler. The baler is driven by a power remover, saw. When the drive wheel rotates, the crankshaft also rotates, which moves the ram forward and backward. At the same time, the pack of arms moves in and out of the bale cabin and the auger turns constantly. The spring-loaded pickup wheel picks up the hay as the baler moves forward and throws it into the combine plates where it comes into contact with the feed auger. The auger that floats constantly turns and feeds the hay to the pack arms. The pack of arms moving up and down towards the hay carries the hay to the bale. The hay is compressed in the bale cabin by the pestle with forward and backward movements. This movement is synchronized with the pack arms. It feeds the hay into the bale cabin through the packing arms when pulled to maximum. The baler is equipped with a blade on the side of the pestle to separate the hay in the bale cabin from the rest. Two needles are used to push the ropes through the bales, where the knot mechanism catches and binds them. A measuring wheel that rotates slowly and moves the bale through the bale cabin with the bale and activates the needles and knot mechanism if it has the correct length. How to change the bale density of a ram-type baler. By increasing or decreasing the resistance to the hay moving through the bale cabin. By setting the bale chamber. Operation of the round baler. How is the bale density of round bales changed? By increasing or decreasing the bale rate. Slip clutch and function. Prevent heavy objects from being absorbed into the baler. Protect the adder if it is obstructed by any foreign objects. Protect the auger if it is overloaded. Advantages of the rectangular baler with that of the cylindrical baler. Rectangular. Save space optimally. Handle bales by hand. Continuous baling process. Bale easily stored. Transport space optimal use. Round. One-man operation. Low rope consumption. Simple operation. Can bale until it starts to rain. No need for covered storage. Disadvantages. Rectangular. Greater labor need. Bales should be stored under a roof or tarpaulin. Higher maintenance needs machine. Operation more complicated. More expensive / higher repair costs. Cylindrical. Difficult transport of bale. Must be handled mechanically. No automatic packing equipment available yet. Relatively large storage space required. Transport problems. Getting ready for bale. All grease points must be well greased. The correct tension must be set for all tires and chains. Check that all parts are functioning properly by operating them slowly. Replace all worn parts immediately. Service according to manufacturer specifications. Lift all dust release screens. Check that binding period has been corrected. See if the machine magazine has enough rope. Setting of baler timing. The exact moment when the needles lift the binding rope so that the pressed hay can be bound. This should happen if the ram does not compress. Ram can break the needles that pierce through hay. Safety mechanisms. Slide clutch. Screens. Ram stop safety mechanism. Shear bolts. Baler maintenance. Oil / grease. Check all bearing, chains and gears. Check all safety couplers. Sharpen all blades. Check wheel pressure. Check screw tension. Check chassis and tires for damage. Tasks that a person must perform during the maintenance of a baler. Lubricate regularly. Check all bearings, chains and gears. Check all safety couplers. Sharpen all blades. Check tire pressure. Check that all bolts are tight. Inspect chassis, chains, gears, mechanisms and tires for damage. Store for long period. Remove all bales from the bale chamber. Clean the baler properly. Drain and replace all oil. Release tension on all drive belts. Remove all chains, clean and oil and replace. Take all slip clutches apart, clean and reassemble but do not place the springs under tension. Reduce bale cabin tension. Cover unpainted parts with a thin layer of grease. Grease all grease points. Store baler in a dry place under a roof or tarpaulin. Round balers. Multiply system. It has a bale forming mechanism that rolls the hay tightly into a round bale. The bale cabin is initially small but gradually enlarges as the hay is fed into the cabin. Tension system of pulleys, belts and chains keeps the tension of the bales constant. The bale cabin enlarges with the release of bales. If the bales are large enough, ropes are tied around the bale. The bale is then thrown out at the back of the baler and a new bale is formed. Welger type round bales. Bale formation process. Once a bale reaches maximum size, rope is released to bind it, and the forward movement is stopped. The bale keeps rolling in a rope turning arm, which works mechanically, moves forward over the top of the bale. This movement causes the rope to be twisted around the bale for its full length. Round bale safety. Safety aspects of the equipment used in large round bale packages such as balers, front-loading excavators, bale handling and transport devices. The key to a safe and efficient system for handling large round bales is an operator who is aware of the hazards involved and who follows safety practices to prevent accidents from occurring. Operators must be constantly alert to situations that could lead to injuries to themselves and or others. In addition to pain and suffering, accidents can contribute to higher costs in terms of unnecessary interruptions or costly repairs to machines. Readiness and safety awareness can lead to more efficient and profitable baling and handling of bales. Baling machine safety. Development of safety awareness begins with the operator's manual. Take time to read the manual and familiarize yourself with the machine at the beginning of each season. Insist that all operators be trained on the safety precautions in the manual. This measure is particularly important for the youth, whose training needs to be strengthened from time to time. Large round balers create unique safety problems for farmers and game ranchers. Large round balers have many moving parts that can cause injury or death when a person becomes entangled. Never leave the tractor seat until the PTO shaft has been disengaged and all moving parts have come to a standstill. Balers and bale handling equipment must be fitted with warning signs or labels. Round baler safety tips. A round baler is large and reduces operator vision to the rear. Be vigilant when pushing the baler backwards. Make sure no one is near the back gate when it is picked up and lowered. Keep everyone away from the back of the baler during download. Large round bales can roll after excretion on hilly terrain. Before servicing, cleaning, or adjusting a round baler, disconnect the power takeoff shaft and shut off the engine. Word. Never try to pull hay or rope out of a moving baler. Block the gate before working under it. Use the safety lock system for the baler gate or safety stop for the gate. Light cylinders. Keep the power takeoff shaft properly protected. Slide the tractor gearbox into park and lock the brakes, or block the baler wheels if the baler is not hooked to a tractor, before working on or under the baler. During operation, you must remain seated on the tractor's seat to reduce the chance of falling into the baler's path. Never allow passengers to ride on the baler during operation or transport. Be extremely careful when working with the baler on uneven or hilly terrain. Round balers have a high center of gravity and can tilt sideways if one wheel falls into a hole, ditch or other irregularity, especially if a finished bale is near release. Raise the rake to overcome bumps and obstacles when working over uneven terrain. Avoid sharp turns. If the tractor's wheels are set for wide windrows, the baler's tongue or sharp points can damage the rear tires. Never try to do tasks with the baler quickly. Keep safety signs clean, legible and free of obstruction material. Replace damaged or missing safety signs with new ones. Make operators aware of the meaning of the danger signs. When handling large round bales, the size of the tractor must match the size of the bale a small tractor can be pushed down a slope. Without sufficient traction on grassy slopes, the tractor can easily slip and get out of control. Many fatal accidents have already occurred when bystanders become entangled in the baling process. Original safety screens over moving parts such as chains, gears and pulleys must be left in position to protect yourself and bystanders. The following mechanisms require special attention. Rake teeth and bale tension belts cannot be shielded and should be avoided. Bale gate can close on a bystander. You as the operator should make sure no one is near before turning on the equipment. Heat can build up through friction when dry hay comes in contact with faulty bearings and belts. Farmers have already reported that bales can start burning due to this friction and overheating. People have already suffered serious burns when they try to put out these burning bales. Keep a dry chemical fire extinguisher handy. Bale handling on hills. Using large round balers on a slope is a greater danger situation than any other machining operation. Bales on a slope have the potential to roll down the hill and break through fences and crossroads, leading to injuries and potential damage to property. Always orient the bale correctly before leaving the bale out of the bale chamber. Sometimes it just means that the baler has to be pushed back to let the bale out at the right angle perpendicular to the slope. The aim is to make sure that the bale will rest safely on the hill. Steep slopes may require the bale to be hauled to a flat place before ejection. Handling of large round bales. Small square bales, weighing 35-85 kilograms, and are traditionally handled and packed by hand or with a bale loader. Large round bales usually weigh between 200 and 1000 kilograms and must be handled mechanically. Due to their weight, these bales can cause serious injuries if they roll over or fall on an individual. Many farmers use transport equipment designed for small square bales to handle these larger packages. Sometimes with minor adjustments. When done improperly, it can lead to injury or death due to overturning or flattening.
Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more future educational videos.
Topic: Irrigation and water supply. At the end of this lesson you should be able to understand the following concepts. Different types of drainage systems used to get rid of excess water around farm building. French drainage, channel drainage, gutters, slope drainage, drainage ditches, water purification/softening and filtration systems. Identification. Introduction. Learning content covered in Grade 12 Terms 1 and 2. Safety. Structural material. Energy. Construction process. Tools, equipment, and systems. Concepts and skills. The different types of domestic drainage systems. Household drainage are systems that drain water away from the home. The most common household drainage systems are French drains, canal drains, gutter drainage, slope drainage, and drainage ditches. Regardless of how the water got there, all the drainage systems are meant to divert water so that water does not enter the house, does not leak, standing water attracts pests, and does not cause erosion to the foundation. https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=d1cdwrwekd0. French drainage is basically a ditch dug around the perimeter of the building that takes the water away from the structure let flow. Many French drains also contain perforated pipes buried under the gravel or pebbles. Water drain through the surface gravel and seep into the pipe holes where it flows away to an area that can provide extra water. Accommodate. https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=l_5G9C08s. Canal drainage is a long, narrow ditch that is used to allow large amounts of water to flow away quickly. Also, called a trench drain, canal drains are typically made of concrete. In addition to draining water, canal drains also used to hold utility lines and cables. Although not often used in rural areas, canal drains are seen in larger urban areas, where houses are built relatively close to each other. https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=sign_bmtdoj. Gutter drainage is a traditional home drainage system and works by removing fresh water from a home's foundation to lead. As part of a gutter system, drain pipes at the bottom of the gutters are tilted at an angle so that the water drains away. Installed drain pipes are usually made of zinc-plated sheet, aluminum or vinyl and are also available in more flexible pieces that can lead water a few feet away. https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=d9UUWC5LVNE. Slope drainage. This type of drainage works with gravity. If your house is on a mountain or just a little slope, the water can be led away from the house with the principle of a negative slope. This type of system involves a flexible PVC or plastic pipe laid in a tunnel. The tunnel was dug from the foundation of the house to at a more suitable place such as a flower bed or drainage ditch where the water can be used again. https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=2SJ1JZYFEE. Drainage ditch is a type of house drainage, which means that excess water is drained from lawns and plots. The ditch is dug along the street and water flows from the lawn into the ditch, after which it goes to the wastewater system flows. This prevents standing water or erosion from ruining a home's landscape. https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=sign x_junmkq4zk. Purification of water. Chlorine. There are two basic ways to make water germ-free that are commonly used. One is the chlorine process used by city councils and certain bottling companies. Chlorine, which is a toxin, according to research kills about 67% of the bacteria. Chlorine cannot kill all bacteria found in human and animal waste. Chlorine is harmful to your health in the long run but does not have a detrimental effect in the short term. Boiling water kills most germs but has the disadvantage that some of the clean water evaporates as steam in the process and the water that remains is dirtier than before it was boiled. Purification. The second method commonly used is to use purification systems to remove all dirt from the water. Good systems also extract things like hormones and chlorine from the water. To make the water bacteria-free, ozone is used together with a UV light. This method destroys 99% of all bacteria in the water, especially people with kidney problems, babies, and people with certain heart problems should not use other water. Some people who sell untreated water to customers will often say that purified water is too clean and does not contain minerals. However, research has shown that the human body receives very few minerals from water and more from vegetables, fruits, and meat. If you buy water, you should look at the bottle to see what the dirty particle count, referred to as total dissolved solids, TDS, is of the water. The highest standard water TDS is less than 20. Water that has been ozonated will be indicated on the bottle as reverse osmosis and ozonation. If one buys tap water, insist that the water supplier can show you a certificate proving that the supplier's water is tested on a regular basis by an independent testing center. If you take your own water bottle to such a supplier to refill, do not rinse the bottle. Just put the stopper on and ask for the bottle to be rinsed in the store. Grey water. Introduction. Water is a scarce resource in our country, and it has been predicted that the Western Cape will be the first region without water unless steps are taken to manage water demand more efficiently. What is grey water? Grey water is defined as water coming from baths, showers, and hand basins. Wastewater from kitchen sinks and washing machines, unless environmentally friendly detergents are used, is excluded due to the high solids content and negative impact of emollients and other unwanted chemicals on the environment. Grey water can be used successfully for garden irrigation. There are many grey water systems on the market, some of which are very economical and easy to install. Our gardens consume between 30% and 50% of all domestic water used. If individual water users use grey water, it will relieve the pressure on all other water infrastructure. A grey water system can save valuable drinking water, save your money, and relieves the pressure on our natural environment. Reuse of grey water. Connecting your grey water system. It's easy to connect a grey water system to the pipes outside your home. You can do it yourself or ask the supplier to do it. The grey water system supplier will usually provide you with one or more pipes, garden hoses, and sprinklers spread throughout the garden, as well as a pump that is strong enough to pump through 2 sprinklers simultaneously and up to 60 square meters of your garden at once to cover storage of grey water. The first rule of thumb is not to overcook it. Stored grey water can be a source of pathogens, which can be a health risk and also emit offensive odors. It must therefore be pumped to the garden immediately. If grey water needs to be stored, a water purification system must be installed. Effects of detergents in grey water on your garden. Remember, when using grey water for garden irrigation, any product used in the bath or shower ends up in your garden. Most detergents consist of up to a third by weight of phosphates, which will then accumulate in the soil and over 10 years of continuous use will be toxic to your plants. It is therefore advisable to use environmentally friendly detergents that are phosphate-free. The packaging of most of these detergents shows that they are environmentally friendly. You can also use soda ash or baking soda that will emulsify oil and grease in your laundry just as well. 14. Grey water system and odors. Grey water does have a slight odor when used for irrigation, but it disappears within seconds thereafter. Your grey water system supplier will provide you with maintenance instructions that you usually only need to set aside for a few minutes a week to ensure that your grey water system is odorless. Connecting your existing irrigation system to your grey water system. Never pump grey water through pop-up or so-called microjet sprinklers. Even with an advanced filtering process, the system will become clogged within a matter of weeks or even days. This is why your system supplier provides you with the necessary pipes, garden hoses and accessories to connect to the appropriate sprinklers. Use of grey water in a garden. Use the right sprinklers with your grey water system to prevent it from becoming clogged. The homeowner can easily install an economical grey water system. Grey water is good quality water for the fynbos garden. A sophisticated grey water system can be buried underground. Domestic water purification systems increasingly used for good reason. The quality of the water we receive from the municipalities is not always so good, and there are also many chemicals in the water that we would rather not take in. Reverse osmosis water purification. Reverse osmosis. The 3 to 6 phase reverse osmosis systems follow the following steps to purify the water. A sediment filter to remove particles such as rust and calcium carbonate. A second filter with finer pores to remove some of the smaller particles. An activated carbon filter to remove organic chemicals and chlorine that can damage the membranes. A reverse osmosis filter consisting of a thin film composite membrane. A reverse osmosis filter to capture chemicals that have not been removed through the reverse osmosis membrane. A sixth phase where the minerals our bodies need to be replaced by the first 5 phases. Reverse osmosis water purification. Reverse osmosis also helps to make our immune system more effective. By removing some of the microscopic impurities from the water, whether you drink it or use it for cooking, these impurities never enter your body. As a result, your immune system now needs less energy and can concentrate on the diseases like colds and flu that better enable you to stay healthier and live. Installing reverse osmosis filtered water also has many benefits. Among other things, by removing chlorine and other flavors in the water, your food will taste better. The flavor and texture of the cooked food will also be much better. The reverse osmosis system is also very easy to maintain. The filters can be easily replaced, and depending on the raw water quality, this is done once to twice a year. The membrane is only replaced every 2 to 5 years. Here are some examples of the different devices/filters they offer. The 5-phase reverse osmosis. It is a household appliance that provides the same quality water that one buys in a store. Reverse osmosis is a membrane technology that is so fine that it can extract bacteria and viruses from water. Some places also use it to purify sewage or grey water for human consumption. It is even used in desalination plants. They also supply specialized taps that provide hot, cold, and filter water in one tap. The countertop filter is the cheapest filter but does not remove as many impurities from the water. There are some basic types of filters that remove different elements. For town water we usually use the following. Sediment filters. Remove any solid parts from water and can also remove some color. Carbon. Mostly used to remove chlorine and other chemicals, which are unhealthy. Can also remove taste and odor. Must be used after sediment filter. Sand filters is also widely used to solve various problems such as e.g. to remove color, taste and odor on a large scale. Water softeners remove lime from the water and thus help gaseous elements last longer. Also helps a lot with dry skin. A water softener will make your laundry cleaner. Your clothes will feel softer. No more white spots on the glassware. No more soap left in your clothes when washed. The overall water quality is better. No more white spots on the shower walls. Use less soap. Water problems. Hard water is caused by high amounts of calcium and magnesium in the raw water. The water softener replaces the calcium salt with sodium salt. When the softener functions correctly, the ratio is 1:1. But not everything is always perfect, and therefore the soft water is rinsed again to get rid of the remaining salts if any. Water descaler. The water decalcifier is used for the effective prevention of lime deposits in domestic water pipes and water heating. Elements such as the geyser, boiler element, air conditioner, dishwasher, washing machine, and also of course in the pipes of solar heating systems that many people use today to generate electricity. The Big Blue water descaler. The Big Blue is available in different phases, 1, 2 or 3 depending on what the problems are with the water. The system filters the water in the filters, removing the lime. Depending on the concentration of lime in the water, the filters need to be cleaned and replaced. Activities/assessment. Learners can work out previous year's papers and follow the hyperlinks to watch the videos on the topics. Do research on the different drains and then choose one that they think is the most practical drain. Complete common questions. Frequently asked questions. 1. Use the following data and calculate the water flow in a pipe system. Show all calculations. The water tank contains 5,000 liters. It takes 5 minutes to fill the tank. 2. Give reasons why it is sometimes necessary for the farmer to calculate the flow rate of a pipe. For the correct calibration of spreaders. For effective irrigation scheduling. Not overusing the water source. 3. Briefly explain how a septic tank works. Sewage is broken down by anaerobic bacteria in the first tank. Very little solid waste remains in the second tank. Only liquid remains and drains away through the pipes to the stone ditch. Four. Name the important points that toilet users must remember of a septic tank so that it can function properly. Use only toilet paper. No plastic. No cigarette butts. No disinfectants. No bleach or oil. 5. Where should people not build a septic tank? Do not build near boreholes. Build some distance away from home. Not close to traffic. Not near people eating, washing or working.
Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more future educational videos.
Topic: Tractor systems. At the end of this lesson you should be able to understand the following concepts. Tractor hydraulic systems, the identification and operation. Single-action hydraulic cylinders, double-action hydraulic cylinders and hydraulic oil. Traction points of a tractor, identification and operation. Lifting arms, sensitivity element, upper coupling point, leveling box, PTO drive and drawbar. Mass displacement and traction of a tractor. Factors that positively or negatively affect the mass displacement of a tractor. Introduction. Learning content that was dealt with in Grade 10, 11 and Term 1 Grade 12 must link in with the current content that will now be dealt with. Grade 11 Safety. Grade 12 Safety. Grade 12 Tools and Equipment. The purpose of this lesson is to provide content associated with tractor systems to treat. Concepts and skills. Tractor hydraulic systems, the identification and operation. Single-action hydraulic cylinders. The piston-type pump is driven from the tractor's engine and causes a high oil pressure in that part of the system. Between the pump and the control valve. The moment the operator moves the control valve piston to the right, the oil flows under pressure via the one-way valve to the cylinder and pushes the piston and rod outwards. As soon as the control valve moves in the opposite direction, a small hole in the control valve is exposed, which allows oil to flow in the same pipe in a reverse direction to the oil container. The weight of the implement now pushes the piston back to its original position. Double-action hydraulic cylinders. When the control lever is in the neutral position, the oil is pumped through the oil pump to the control valve. Pump from where it is pumped back through the oil filter to the oil container. As soon as the control lever is moved to the lifting position, the control valve directs the oil under pressure to the piston side of the hydraulic cylinder in order to move the piston to the right and thus lift the implement. In order to force the implement into the ground, the control lever is moved by the operator to the pocket position and now the control valve directs the high oil pressure using the other pipe to the rod side of the cylinder to move the piston to the left. To move. In this way, the implement in both directions is controlled in a positive way from the operator's seat. Which side of the double-acting hydraulic cylinder is the strongest? The insertion force direction is weaker than the force direction due to the area subjected to the oil pressure in the cylinder. The side of the cylinder that has the rod is weaker than the other side. Hydraulic oil. Advantages of using transmission oil in hydraulic systems. Not compressible. Good lubricating. Properties. Stay in a liquid form. Over a wide temperature range. Not volatile. Relatively cheap. Easily conductive / transportable in pipes. Flow through filters. Pipes, oil pumps and cylinders with ease. Contains cleaning agents that keep parts clean. Connection points of a tractor. Identification and operation. Who designed the 3-point mechanism? Harry Ferguson. What is the function of the leveling box? Modify the cross angle of the implement in relation to the tractor. What is the function of the top link? Adjust the inclination of the implement with respect to the tractor's direction of movement. Top link. The top link must be adjusted so that the plow frame is parallel to the ground for the plow to function properly. What is the sensitivity element / sensitivity element? The sensitivity element is a system mounted on the 3-point mechanism of a tractor to regulate the implement end. More specifically, the plow. What is the function of the sensitivity element? Its function is to stimulate the hydraulic system at a given moment, e.g. when the plow penetrates too deeply or when it hits hard ground, so that the hydraulic system can make the necessary correction to overcome the problem. What is the sensitivity element also called? Automatic depth control mechanism. Where can the sensitivity element be installed on the tractor? Where the upper rod connects to the tractor. In the diff housing. To the tractor where the two tractors are mounted. A sensitivity element that has been installed on the upper drawbar. The compression spring will pull the cable if too much traction is applied, and the cable will in turn activate the hydraulic system that will make the correction. The system comes into play when the plow should get stuck or plow too deep into the ground. The system is pre-calibrated according to the requirements, after which the semi-activity system automatically makes the adjustments to adhere to these preset requirements. Leveling box, upper rod, PTO shaft, pull shaft. Name the two types of drawbars. Fixed drawbar. Swinging drawbar. Power takeoff, PTO, drive. In which direction should the power takeoff rotate? Clockwise. Name the 4 types of power takeoff drive shafts. Common type of power takeoff. Live power takeoff. Ground wheel driven power takeoff. Independent power takeoff shaft. What type of power takeoff allows the operator to stop the power takeoff while the tractor is still moving? Forward. Independent power takeoff shaft. Name the device that enables the power takeoff to work at an angle. Universal joints / cross coupling. Give the function of the grease nipples installed on this device. To lubricate / grease the joints regularly. Factors that positively or negatively affect the mass displacement of a tractor. The illustration below shows the effect of the forces of a plow on a tractor. Analyze the illustration and briefly describe what arrow A illustrates. Give a reason for your answer. The illustration shows how the plow tends to push the front wheels off when an upper rod is coupled between the plow and tractor. What will happen if the upper rod between the tractor and the plow is removed? The back of the plow will tend to lift off the ground, or the nose of the tractor will tend to lift. Name 3 ways in which a tractor's mass displacement can be positively changed. Reduce the pulling force on the drawbar. Lower the drawbar attachment point. Increase the axle distance of the tractor. Name the 3 ways in which a tractor's mass displacement can be changed negatively. By increasing the drawbar traction. Make the drawbar attachment point on the tractor higher. Reduce the axle distance of the tractor. Name the 3 factors that influence the depth control system of a tractor. Plow depth. The deeper plow, the more resistance. Ground resistance. Forward speed of operation.
Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more future educational videos.
Topic: Types of feeds, subdivision of feed and a feed flow program. At the end of the lesson you should know and understand the following content. Classification of animal feeds. The concept, roughages, and concentrates. The characteristics of roughages and concentrates. The description of different types of roughages and concentrates. The schematic representation of different types of animal feeds. The functions, importance of roughages and concentrates. Subdivision of feeds. The comparison between protein-rich and carbohydrate-rich types of feeds. Examples of protein-rich and carbohydrate-rich feeds. Supplements to rations. The different ways of supplementing minerals, vitamins, non-protein nitrogen, and growth stimulants. Planning a feed flow program. The terminology, feed flow program, maintenance and production ration. A brief overview of the person square method, feed formulation. Calculation and the drawing of feed requirements using a single person square method. The interpretation of the person square results for feed mixtures. Fodder/feed flow/fodder production planning. The importance of fodder flow/fodder production planning. Basic calculation of a feed/fodder flow program for a group of livestock. Number of animals and feed needed over a period of time. Learning content that has been dealt with in previous grades must be in line with the current content. Grade 12 Term 1 Week 4, Digestibility of Feed. The purpose of this lesson is to study the content related to types of feeds. Concepts and skills. Types of feed diagrams. Concentrates. Concentrates are feeds that contain a high percentage of digestible nutrients and little crude fiber. Concentrates are feeds with a small volume per unit mass. This means that concentrates are not bulky. Characteristics of concentrates. Concentrates have between 60 to 85% total digestible nutrients, TDN. Concentrates are not bulky, because of the low crude fiber content. However, they are generally quite expensive. Types of concentrates. Protein-rich concentrates can either be of plant origin, such as lupins and oil cake meals, soybean, cottonseed, sunflower, canola and groundnut, or of animal origin, such as fish meal. Protein-rich concentrates contain more than 12% digestible protein. Energy-rich concentrates, such as maize, oats, barley, wheat and molasses, contain a higher percentage of digestible carbohydrates and less than 10% digestible proteins. Functions of concentrates. Some animals, such as pigs and chickens, cannot digest roughages and are fed mostly with concentrates. In ruminants, concentrates are used to balance roughages according to the needs of the animal. Concentrates are used to increase milk and meat production. Concentrates are necessary for the fattening or finishing of animals. Concentrates are necessary for growth and reproduction. Concentrates supply proteins, carbohydrates, fats, minerals and vitamins in the ration. Concentrates are used to balance roughage so that it can satisfy the protein and energy requirements of an animal. Roughages. Roughages contain a small percentage of digestible nutrients per unit mass, less than 60% total digestible nutrients, and have a high crude fiber content, more than 20%. Roughages are feeds that contain a large volume per unit mass, are therefore bulky. Sources of roughage include hay, green fodder, pastures and silage. Types of roughages. Roughages can be divided into protein-rich roughages and carbohydrate-rich roughages. Protein-rich roughages such as lucerne hay, clover hay and groundnut hay contain more than 6% digestible proteins. Energy-rich roughages such as hay, straw and silage contain less than 6% digestible proteins. Functions of roughages. Roughages are the cheapest source of nutrients. This is a saving for the farmer that can balance the cost of concentrate feeding. Ruminants need roughages to maintain a healthy digestive system. Legume roughages are rich in proteins, vitamins A and D, and minerals, especially calcium. Roughage helps rumen development in young ruminants. Roughages supply the bulk to the ration, which is important for digestion in the rumen. Since roughages are generally tasty, they increase the feed intake. Intake of sufficient roughages in the rumen usually prevents bloating in ruminants. Stimulating milk production. Legume roughages are rich in proteins. Good legume roughages are rich in vitamins A and D. Legume roughages are rich in minerals, especially calcium. Supplements to rations. Supplement can be used to replace a deficiency, vitamins and minerals. Increase production, growth stimulants. Increase the digestibility of feedstuffs, non-protein nitrogen. Add antibiotics and probiotics to animal feeds. How to supplement minerals. Mineral licks. Dosing. Mixing with concentrates. Mixing with drinking water. Injections. Cafeteria-style mineral provision. Soil sods. Supplementing vitamins. Adding to the rations, the concentrated rations of pigs and poultry must be supplemented with the required vitamins by adding a mineral/vitamin premix powder to the feed to fulfill their requirements. Drinking water. Water-miscible vitamin A oil is mixed with the drinking water of animals. No more than 1 to 2 days drinking water should be treated as the vitamin A oils deteriorate reasonably quickly when exposed to air. Injections. Vitamin deficiencies may be supplemented immediately by injections in the muscle. Supplementing non-protein nitrogen, NPN. Proteins for animal feeding are expensive. Cheaper non-protein nitrogen, NPN, such as urea and biuret, can substitute natural protein in ruminant rations, but not more than 1/3 of the nitrogen content. NPN does not provide any energy to the animal, and too much can poison the animal. In addition, the carbon skeletons of natural proteins are needed by the microorganisms to be able to build microbial protein with the N obtained from urea. Conversion of NPN in the rumen. In the rumen, the microorganisms change the NPN compounds into microbial protein during the digestion process. The microorganisms first change the NPN compound into ammonia and then change the ammonia to microbe proteins. The ammonia that is not changed into microbe protein is absorbed through the stomach wall and taken to the liver. The liver changes it to urea and recycles it in the saliva or excretes it in the urine. How to supplement urea. A farmer can feed urea on a large scale to ruminants in premixed feeds, mixtures and stock licks. However, it is important that the farmer monitor the supply to prevent urea poisoning. Urea poisoning takes place when animals eat too much of a normally safe lick. The lick or feed has a concentration of urea that is too high. The licks are not properly mixed. It rains and the urea dissolves in the rainwater, which the animals drink. Biuret is less soluble and safer to use than urea, but is more expensive. Supplementing growth stimulants. The increasing demand to feed a growing global population stimulates an increase in the efficiency of animal production. Significant advances have been made in the fields of animal nutrition, genetics and husbandry. At the same time, farmers use more growth stimulants. Growth stimulants are chemical compounds that increase growth rate and include compounds that improve the efficiency with which animals utilize food sources. A whole range of growth stimulants are available for animal production. How to supplement growth hormones. The endocrine system of an animal controls body metabolism and secretes the natural sex hormones. Testosterone, estrogen and progesterone that play a role in the control of growth. Most of these hormones are made in pellet form. The pellets are implanted subcutaneously either behind the ears or in the neck of the animal. In South Africa, non-hormone anabolic compound can also be used that produces similar growth results to estrogen but possesses no harmful health hazards. How to supplement thyroid regulators. Substances that can regulate the secretion of thyroxine are administered because the thyroid gland plays an important role in the metabolic rate of an animal. This will directly affect growth rate of an animal. How to supplement antibiotics. Antibiotics are used to improve the growth of chickens and young pigs, to prevent certain clinical disease conditions, and to prevent harmful microorganisms in the alimentary canal. Antibiotics can be supplemented by adding them to the feed in the feed mill. Antibiotics are only allowed to be added to a ration if there is a prescription from a veterinary surgeon. Antibiotics are kept locked up at the feed mill and their usage is strictly recorded and monitored. How to supplement tranquilizers? Tranquilizers are usually given to animals in feedlots to keep them calm. Animals eat more, resulting in faster weight gain. Tranquilizers can be injected into the animal or mixed with drinking water. Fodder flow program. Types of rations. Maintenance ration. This is the amount of feed that an animal needs to maintain its body mass and composition. Production ration. Is the feed an animal needs in addition to the maintenance ration to do work or produce products such as milk, wool, meat or eggs. Planning a fodder flow program. A good feed flow program on a farm will ensure that there is sufficient food available for the animals throughout the year. To ensure a balanced, functional, efficient ration, the farmer needs to determine the nature and quantity of feed for a ration. To do this, the farmer needs to know the feed requirements of the animal for maintenance and production, the chemical composition and nutrient values of the feed. Properties of a good fodder flow plan. Resources such as felt, land, water, labor, and capital must be used safely, because incorrect usage will weaken the plan. Animal requirements, as determined by their physiological state or by a required level of production, need to be fully met for all stock over the year. The margin over all feed costs should show a positive margin over feed costs. Management flexibility must be applied because fodder is subject to climatic variation. Balancing rations to meet maintenance and production requirements. The composition of feed that is supplied to animals differs greatly. Because no single type of feed can ensure successful nutrition, a farmer will use a combination of feed types to provide enough nutrients to satisfy an animal's nutrient requirements. Using a number of ingredients ensures that the ration is balanced. The ration is palatable. Neither too many roughages nor too many concentrates are used. Methods to balance rations. Nutritionists use advanced computer programs to balance rations. There are also various feeding tables with the nutrient requirements of different classes of animals. These tables give recommendations under normal environmental conditions for growth, milk production, reproduction and health. Factors that influence the nutrient requirements of dairy cows are milk production level, butterfat content of milk, body mass, stage of lactation, pregnancy stage, distance walked or height climbed. The Pearson square method. The Pearson square method is a mathematical tool we use in feed formulation to make it easy to mix two nutrients with different concentrations to get a ration with a desired concentration. In other words, it is a method of balancing rations. We use the Pearson square to determine in which ratio the two nutrients should be mixed to get the desired concentration balance. Overview of the Pearson square method. Step 1. Calculate the feed requirements of the animal according to her maintenance and production requirements. Step 2. Convert the daily DP and TDN requirements to percentages, as all the numbers in the Pearson square have to be in the same units. To do this. Step 3. Next, decide which of the two nutrients you are going to use in the Pearson square. You can only use one. The other one is calculated after the two feedstuffs have been mixed. Step 4. Now use the Pearson square to determine the ratio in which you need to mix the two feedstuffs to get to the required value of the nutrient you chose in Step 3. Step 5. Use the ratio to calculate the amount, for example in kilograms, of each feedstuff to mix to meet the requirement. Step 6. Work out the value of the nutrient in the ration that was not used in the Pearson square. Step 7. Interpret the Pearson square results. How to calculate the nutrient requirement. 1. Subtract the nutrient requirement, middle of square, from the nutrient concentration indicated for feed B, bottom left-hand corner of the square. Write the answer in the top right-hand corner of the square. Repeat this calculation again using the nutrient concentration of feed A, top left-hand corner. Write the answer in the bottom right-hand corner of the square. Take note that the subtractions are made diagonally. Change any negative numbers on the right-hand side of the square to a positive number. 2. After subtracting across the diagonal, add the parts of the two feeds to get the total sum. 3. Calculate the percentage of each feed in the ration. For example, 30/35x100 equals 85, 7% maize in the ration. Look across the horizontal legs of the square to determine the parts needed of the individual feeds in the ration. Going from left to right in this example, the farmer would need 5 parts soybean meal and 30 parts maize to get a 15% crude protein ration. Interpretation of Pearson square results for feed mixtures. 1. Subtract across the diagonally. A. 15% to 10% equals 5 parts soybean meal. B. 15% to 45% equals 30 parts maize. 2. Add the parts of feed A, 5 parts soybean meal, to the parts of feed B, 30 parts maize, to get the sum equals 35. 3. Divide each part by the total to calculate the percent of each feed to be included in the mixed feed. 4. 5 parts soybean meal equals 5/35 total parts 10/100 equals 14, 3% soybean meal. 5/30 parts maize equals 30/35 total parts 10/100 equals 85, 7% maize. Example. A farmer must make sure that cattle grazing on a pasture get an additional ration with a digestible protein, DP, value of 15%. The farmer needs to mix 2 feeds to get the DP value. One feed, A, has a DP value of 18%, and the other feed, B, has a DP value of 6%. In what ratio should the farmer mix these 2 feeds to obtain the required DP value? Draw a square and place 1. The DP value for feed A at the top left-hand corner of the square. 2. The DP value for feed B at the left bottom corner of the square. 3. The desired DP value of the new mixture in the middle of the square. Working across the square and calculate the differences between the DP percentage values for feeds A and B, and the desired DP value, will give you the parts ratio of the feeds that need to be mixed. For feed A, 15% to 6% equals 9 parts, and for feed B, 18% to 15% equals 3 parts. Write these figures in the top right-hand corner, feed A, and bottom right-hand corner, feed B. These values represent the quantity of the 2 feeds that needs to be mixed to get the required DP value in the new mixture. The farmer would need to add 9 parts of feed A to 3 parts of feed B. Feed A 18% required parts of feed A, 15 to 6% equals 9 parts. 15%. Feed B 6% required parts of feed B 18 to 15% equals 3 parts. If expressed as percent.
Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more future educational videos. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more future educational videos. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more future educational videos.
Topic: Construction processes. At the end of this lesson you should be able to understand the following concepts: MIG welding, advanced welds and their application, overhead welding, vertical upward welding, pipe welding, cast iron welding, building up of worn parts, shrinkage of welds, oxyacetylene cutting, plasma cutting. Introduction. Learning content that was covered in Grade 11 and Term 1 Grade 12 must link in with the current content that will now be covered. Grade 10 Welding, arc welding, safety and workshop practices. Grade 11 Welding, arc welding, oxyacetylene welding. Grade 12 Workshop safety. The purpose of this lesson is to discuss content associated with MIG welding, advanced welding, advanced welding processes, oxyacetylene cutting and plasma cutting. Concepts and skills. MIG, metal inert gas welding. What is MIG welding? MIG welding was developed in the 1940s and 60 years later the general principle is still very much the same. MIG welding uses an arc of electricity to create a short circuit between a closely fed anode plus the wire-line nozzle end. A cathode, the metal being welded. The heat generated by the short circuit, together with a non-reactive, inactive gas melts the metal locally and allows them to mix. Once the heat is removed, the metal begins to cool and solidify, forming a new piece of fused metal. MIG welding is useful because you can use it to weld a wide variety and types of metals: carbon steel, stainless steel, aluminum, magnesium, copper, nickel, silicon, bronze, and other metals. MIG machine parts. Task: name the parts in the photo below of the MIG welding machine as numbered from A to H. What is MIG welding about? It is an arc welding process in which separate recordings electrodes, standard welding rods, are displaced by continuous line wire and loss inlet gas screen replace the electrode current, electrode flux. The welding machine. Inside the welding machine you will flush a MIG wire and see a series of rollers that eject wire to the nozzle. There is not much going on inside this part of the welding machine, so it is worth spending just a minute to familiarize yourself with the different parts. If the wire feed is blocked for any reason, you will want to look at this part of the machine. On larger MIG welding machines, the wire feed unit will be able to be separate as in the photos below. The large spool of wire must be held in place with a tension nut. The nut should be tight enough to prevent the spool from unraveling and thus avoid overrunning bird's nest. When the trigger is released, but not so tight that the rollers cannot pull the wire from the spool. If you can follow the wire from the spool, you will see that it goes in a series of rollers that pull the wire from the large roll. It then pushes the wire to the nozzle point ready for welding. Gases used: argon, helium, carbon dioxide, CO2. CO2 or a mixture of CO2/argon can be used to weld medium steel. Gas supply. When you use a shielding gas with your MIG welding machine, there will be a cylinder gas behind the MIG. It is either 100% argon or a mixture of CO2 and argon. This gas protects the weld as it forms. Without the gas, your welds will be browned, splashed, and generally will not look very pretty. Open the main valve of the cylinder and make sure there is gas in it. Your meters should read between 0 and 2500 psi in the tank, and the regulator should be set between 15 and 25 psi depending on how you want to set it and the type of burner you are using. When welding in areas with a pull, the gas pressure must be increased to prevent porosity of the weld. Once the wire moves through the rollers, it is guided through a set of pipes to the welding nozzle. The pipe carries the charged electrode and the argon gas. The welding nozzle/welding gun. The welding gun is the business of everything. This is where most of your attention will be focused during the welding process. The MIG welding gun consists of a trigger that controls the feed of the wire and electricity. The wire is guided by a replaceable copper tip made for each specific welding machine. The copper tips vary in size to suit the diameter of the wire you are welding with. This part of the welding machine will most likely already be set up for you. The outside of the tip of the welding nozzle is covered by a metal sheet that protects the electrode and directs the gas flow to the tip of the cutting nozzle. The earth clamp. The earth clamp is the cathode in the circuit and completes the circuit between the welding machine, and the project. It must either be attached directly to the piece of metal being welded or attached to the metal welding table, such as the one pictured below. For the welding machine to work, the earth clamp must make good contact with the piece being welded. So make sure you sand away any rust or paint that could prevent the earth clamp from making contact with the workpiece. Safety equipment. The light generated by any form of arc welding is very bright. It will burn your eyes and your skin just like the sun if you do not protect yourself. The first thing you will need to weld is a welding helmet. Wear gloves and leather to protect yourself from molten metal splashing away from your workpiece. Some people prefer thin gloves for welding so you can have much better control. If you do not intend to wear leather, at least wear clothes made of cotton. Do not wear patches or synthetic shoes with gauze over the front of your toes. Hot metal often falls straight down and can burn holes through the top of your shoes. Weld in a well-ventilated area. Welding produces dangerous fumes that you should not inhale if you can avoid them. Wear either a mask or a respirator if you are going to be welding for a long time. Security warning. Do not weld galvanized steel. Galvanized steel contains a zinc layer and releases a toxic gas when burned. The gas causes cancer. Exposure to the gases can lead to heavy metal poisoning, welding chills. Symptoms such as flu can persist for several days, but it can also cause permanent damage. Fire. Molten metal can splash a few feet from a weld. Sparks are even worse. Any sawdust, paper or plastic bags in the area can smolder and burn, so maintain a neat environment when welding. Your attention will be focused on welding and it will be difficult to see what is going on around you if something catches fire. Advantages. High welding speed / faster. Significant savings in materials and weight. High mechanical properties of welded joints. Neat and smooth node surfaces. Guaranteed welding strength for base and low welding. Safety against cold slits and cracks. Welding in all positions, vertically up, down and overhead. The ability to weld a wide range of metals and thicknesses. Ability to be used in all welding positions. A good welding pool / bead. A minimum of welding splashes. Easy to learn. Does not burn easily. Excellent fusion and penetration. The job requires less manual dexterity. Welding areas are easier to see. No heavy welding slag to control or chop away, gas under pressure will seal the welding pool. Potentially cheaper. Weld a wider field of thicknesses. Welding wire rolls off a coil and does not need to be replaced regularly. Disadvantages. MIG welding can only be used on thin to medium thick metals. The use of an inert gas makes this type of welding less portable than arc welding, which does not require an external source of shielding gas. Welding cable length limited. Produces a less controlled weld as compared to TIG, tungsten inert gas welding. Welding cable cannot bend sharply, wire breaks. What are the correct settings? If you experience holes in your work, your power setting is too high, and you are melting through your weld. If your welding is uneven, your wire speed or power settings are too low. You will know when the settings are right, your weld will look nice and smooth. The quality of the weld also depends a lot on the sound of the welding process. You want to hear a continuous sparkling sound. Some welding operators say it sounds like an egg baking. MIG wire welding problem / wire attached to the tip. Sometimes when you weld too close to your material or you build up too much heat, the filler wire at the front of the weld nozzle can burn to the tip. It looks like a small piece of metal on the tip of your nozzle, and you will know when you have this problem because the wire will not come loose from the nozzle. Fixing this problem is pretty simple. You just pull on the piece of metal with pliers. Advanced welds and their application. Name the welds below and find out where each can be used. Overhead welding. Overhead gas welding. Requires a reduced melting pool, large enough to create the desired penetration. Done by reducing the size of the flame. Or the use of a slightly thicker welding rod. Power of the flame will help you hold the molten metal in position. Overhead arc welding. Use a bow as short as possible. Weld a number of runs without any sideways movement. When molten metal begins to drip, the amperage should be slightly reduced. Move electrode slightly faster. Hold electrode in the same position as in relation to base metal. Vertical upward arc welding. Welding upwards in a vertical position can be a problem because the molten metal of the welding coil tends to run down or drip. Special electrodes are used for vertical upward welding with an arc welding machine. This makes the process easier because it freezes faster. Ampere can be slightly lowered from the normal manual setting. Point of the electrode should point upwards so that the electrode makes an angle of up to 30 degrees with the horizontal plane. Arc should be short and the speed just enough to prevent the molten metal pool from running down. When welding upwards, very few lateral movements of the electrode must be made. Different types of welding movements. Figure 8 run. U-run. Zigzag run. Triangular run. Pipe welding positions. Horizontal fixed position. The pipe rests on rollers or a suitable surface that allows the pipe to rotate evenly in one direction while the welding process is in progress. The welder holds the electrode in a constant position while the pipe moves. Horizontal moving position. The pipe is in a fixed position and the welder follows the load where welding is required. Vertical position. The pipe is in a vertical position and the welder follows the load by welding it in a left or right direction. Tilted position, oblique, the pipe is mounted obliquely and the welder welds the load left or right. Cast iron welding. Use an pure nickel welding rod. The amperes should be as low as possible. The arc should be slightly longer than for welding mild steel. Before starting the welding process, make sure that all rust, grease, dirt or any other object that could weaken the load has been removed. Remember to remove the surface layer of the metal where the weld is made. Cover the suspected area with white chalk. Vaseline in the cracks, it will make white chalk gray or show a wet line. Mark the line with a punch and hammer to prevent the line from disappearing if you weigh it out V-groove. It is very important that the casting is kept as cool as possible by the welding process. Preheating a casting that needs to be welded can help prevent the formation of new cracks. Cast iron should be allowed to cool very slowly after being welded. Cast iron should never be placed in water to cool. While allowing a weld to cool, it can be tapped lightly with a small hammer. This action helps to relieve the tension around the weld. What to keep in mind after you have finished welding. Gravity can cause the metal to drop or run off. Keep the space small. Prevent overpenetration and burnout. Electrode size plays a role in the welding process. The current plays a dominant role in the welding process. Surface must be thoroughly cleaned. Building up of worn parts. Hard facing. It is the process by which worn parts can be built up by filling them in. The type of hard facing and type of electrode used is determined by the need for the specific parts. The area to be covered should be free of corrosion, grease or foreign matter by grinding/sanding it away. Types of wear and tear. Metal-to-metal friction. Severe bumps or shocks of metal against stone. Scraping plus shocks or bumps. Severe scraping. Shrinkage of welds. Types of shrinkage. A. Longitudinal shrinking. B. Angular shrinking longitudinally. C. Angular shrinking. D. Lateral shrinking. Definition of shrinkage. When metal is heated it expands and when it cools, it shrinks. The shrinkage of the welded metal as well as welds cause distortion of plates as it cools. Shrinkage occurs simultaneously in all directions and thus causes several types of distortion. Factors that cause shrinkage. Amount of welding. Number of welding runs. Degree of resistance. Original state or condition of parts that must be welded. Welding procedure. Prevention of shrinkage. Admission for distortion by preposition. Welding of patchwork. Clamping. Point welding. Spot welding. Proper preparation of the weld is important. Short fast welding. Preheating. Spread the heat over the entire section. Limit the amount of welding runs. Oxyacetylene cutting. Task: name the different components of the oxyacetylene cutter. Cutting process. The heating flame must be a neutral flame setting. Hold the cutting edge perpendicular to the workpiece. The heating flame should be kept approximately 2 mm away from the workpiece. Hold the flame in this position until the workpiece is bright red hot. Now push the oxygen supply lever. Hold the lever and gradually move the cutting tip in the cutting direction. Do not rush into action. The metal must be allowed to heat as the cutting process proceeds. Be sure to cut the flame through the metal. Sparks and metal splashes will be visible at the bottom of the workpiece. Remember, the thinner the metal, the smaller the cutting edge should be. Thicker metals require larger cutting points. Types of metals that can be cut: mild steel, cast iron, stainless steel. Use of an oxyacetylene apparatus for heating. The purpose of this process is to show you how to use an oxyacetylene device for heating to use. Wear leather apron or similar protective clothing and welding gloves when using an oxyacetylene nozzle, and always use proper welding goggles. Personal safety. When doing a task in the workshop, you must use personal protective clothing and equipment that is appropriate for the task and that complies with your local safety regulations and policies. This may include the following: workwear, such as overalls and steel-toe shoes; eye protection, such as safety goggles and face masks; hearing protection, such as earmuffs and earplugs; hand protection, such as rubber gloves and protective cream; respiratory equipment, such as face masks and valve respirators. Safety tips: oxygen and acetylene cylinders must be stored safely and in an upright position. An oxyacetylene apparatus produces a large amount of heat. Be aware that any objects you aim the flame at will become hot. Always keep a suitable fire extinguisher near your work area. Do not use an oxyacetylene device near any flammable materials. Make sure you understand and adhere to all legislation and personal safety procedures when performing tasks. Step-by-step instructions. Ignite the cutting nozzle and adjust the gas flow until you have a neutral flame. Heat forge removal: place a flywheel and ring gear on insulating spaces to elevate them above the work surface. Aim the flame at the ring gear until smoke appears. Stop the heat. At this point, the ring gear is hot enough to remove by lightly chopping it with a hammer and drift. Do not touch the metal with your hands. Use welding gloves and tools designed for use in a hot environment. Heat to red warm. Aim the flame at the component you want to heat. If the component is made of thin metal, it will heat up faster than one that is thicker. Apply the heat evenly until you see the object glow red. Once the glow is uniform, the metal is hot enough to manipulate. Do not touch the metal with your hands. Use welding gloves and tools designed for use in hot environments. Extinguish/shut down. When the work is done, you will need to shut down the equipment. Close the acetylene valve on the welding nozzle. This will extinguish the flame. Close the oxygen valve on the welding nozzle. Next, you remove your safety goggles or mask and your welding gloves. Turn the main valve to the top of both throttle cylinders clockwise. Now open the two valves on the cutting nozzle to bleed the system. Turn both the oxygen and acetylene regulator handles anti-clockwise until they are loose. Close both valves on the cutting nozzle. Replace the handle and tips and place the cylinders and pipes back in their own storage area. Plasma cutting. Plasma cutting, also known as plasma arc cutting, is a technology developed from the Second World War era. The process involves the use of a tungsten electrode and high-pressure plasma is gas in an ionized state to generate an electric arc between a copper nozzle and workpiece. It is the electric arc that does the cutting, but the high-pressure plasma helps to clean the cut by removing the debris, metal impurities generated by the cutting. Low voltage, high current. The plasma cutter uses an electric transformer and internal circuitry to convert the supply voltage of 220 volts AC with a 15 amp current into a low voltage high current cutting current. The typical voltage range of the plasma cutter can be anything between 20 to 50 volts. The current, on the other hand, can have a high output of up to 100 amperes. It is this high current that causes the identifiable blue and white cut current of electric plasma. Electricity is carried on the outside of all electrical wires. It is the free electrons of copper, the most common wire to carry electricity, which carries or causes the force to move from one point to another. The plasma cutter with its unique circuit concentrates this electron flow in a stretching cutting current. The electrons form a plasma-like substance that can be seen when the trigger is pulled on the cutting handle. It is this intense plasma that heats the metal and melts in a small diameter pool. Compressed air. The final power. Once the molten pool is made, another force is required to push the pool through the other side of the material being cut. Compressed air, at the rate of 100 pounds per square inch (psi), is guided through the cutting nozzle and is released when the trigger is pulled. This plasma stream is now complete and creates a small diameter, fine line for cutting metal. Usually the plasma flow is so intense that the cutting nozzle can be moved along the surface of the metal at a speed of 250 centimeters or more per minute. Compared to other types of cutting devices, which can only reach a maximum speed of 75 centimeters per minute, it makes the plasma cutter a high-speed cutting device. The angle of the cut. A small disadvantage or physical property of the plasma cutter is the angle of the final cut with respect to the material. The plasma arc will cut a 6 to 7 degree angle on the vertical face of the material. Thin metal will not have a vivid viewing angle as opposed to thicker material. Metal with a thickness of 5 mm or thicker will need to be ground with an electric angle grinder in order to obtain a true perpendicular angle with respect to the horizontal surface. Plasma cutting, safety. One of the most important aspects of using a portable plasma cutting machine is safety. Although the operation of the machine is relatively simple, the power of the machine and the level of voltage it contains require that safety is a high priority. Refractory gloves and a face shield must be worn at all times. All plasma cutting machines are a potential fire hazard because they blow hot metal and sparks, so flame-retardant clothing should always be worn. Any flammable material should be at least 35 meters away from the machine while it is in operation. Very importantly, plasma cutting machines contain a potentially deadly voltage reserve. If any live electrical parts are touched, fatal shocks or serious burns will occur. Although the hand plasma cutting machine is easy to handle, certain errors can be fatal. Plasma cutters produce an intensely hot plasma jet that exceeds 45,000 degrees. Under no circumstances should the plasma cutting nozzle be contacted with any part of your body while the machine is in operation. Never touch the workpiece near the cutting area due to the risk of burns. When used for cutting metal, the plasma cutter causes large amounts of sparks and hot metal that can burn clothing or other flammable items around your workspace. Wear fire-resistant, insulated clothing and make sure the workplace is free of fire hazard. As a secondary effect, a plasma beam causes a large amount of visible, ultraviolet radiation which can be harmful to the eyes. Sparks and hot metal can cause eye injuries. Wear proper face and eye protection while using the plasma cutter. Appropriate eye protection will be further outlined in your safety manual. Cutting metal with a plasma cutter will generate dangerous gases. Wear proper breathing equipment, and do not inhale these gases under any circumstances. If you are inspecting an assignment when you have cut it, you should look at the assignment from the side end, not from above. Make sure the workplace is well ventilated. An exhaust hood or a space open to the outside is recommended when using the plasma cutting device. Use respirators or other breathing apparatus where necessary. Advantages. Fast cutting speed. Wide range of materials and thicknesses. Easy to use. Economic. Problems and disadvantages. The machine produces an arc and then loses it, or if the arc cannot penetrate the metal where it once could. Examine the consumable materials first. The electrode and contact point close/wear slightly with each start/stop cycle and must be replaced when they are excessively worn. Some of the biggest problems are related to air pressure. Low air pressure leads to poor performance, especially at high amperes. Look for this condition, try to increase the pressure on the machine. If the pressure gauge does not move much further than the optimum setting, pressure on the gas source can be adjusted because minimum flow rate cannot deliver enough pressure in a few meters of pipe. To ensure sufficient pressure on the machine, the source gauge can be set a little higher than the pressure gauge on the machine. To ensure adequate air pressure for a plasma machine, use a gas pipe with at least a 10 mm internal diameter and fittings that match, or exceed, the rating recommended in the machine's manual. Many plasma cutters have a built-in regulator with an air filter, but a good practice is to install additional filters and separators on the gas supply to remove water or other contaminants.
Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more future educational videos.
Topic: Structural material, electrical fences. At the end of this lesson you should be able to understand the following concepts. OHS legislation applicable to electric fences. Different components of electric fences. Power generator. Power sources. Battery, care and maintenance. Insulators. Wire tensioners. Wires. Post. Droppers. Concepts and skills. Occupational Safety and Health Act, 1993. Rules and regulations for electric fences. No user may install a fence energy generator that delivers electrical energy pulses to an electric fence that is not equal to or within the following values. Peak value of voltage 10 kV. Maximum duration of impulse 50 amps. Minimum intervals between impulses 0.75 s. Maximum quantity of electricity per impulse 2.5 mC. Ohms maximum energy discharge per impulse measured at a resistance of 500 ohms 8J. The user must ensure that all fencing energy generators, built to exclude dust and water, and not installed in dusty places or places where there is a fire hazard. The user will not have a fence energy alarm clock that installs its energy from an electrical supply system in places where the energy generator is likely to be mechanically damaged or tampered with. On a pole of an overhead power or line of communication other than poles which the conductors of the energy generator, and unless the output circuit is isolated from the supply by means of a double wound isolation transformer. The user of a fence energy alarm will ensure that the earth of each fence energy alarm clock is free and at least 2 m away from the earth and any other electrical system, and does not electrify barbed wire, but only smooth wire or such articles that as a person touch it to enable the person to release it immediately, provided that a smooth wire connected to razor wire may be electrified. In the case of a fence energy generator that draws its energy from a battery, charged by means of a charger that obtains its power from an electrical supply, the user must ensure that the charger is of double insulation construction. When an electric fence is installed on a public road or in an urban area, the user must prevent persons from accidentally coming into contact with it and striking notice to warn people that the property is protected by an electric fence. Some components of an electric fence. Below is information on the parts of a highly effective electric fence system used to control, enclose or exclude animals on your farm or even you in your garden. Fence pole/support pole. Although available in a variety of sizes, strengths and materials, they support the electrical fence wires as it controls, holds animals in an area. Isolators. Insulators are used to connect electrified wire to fence posts without loss of energy through the posts. They can be made of porcelain or plastic and are available in many designs for various types of fence posts. Fence wire. Electric fence wire comes in many lengths, tensile strengths and materials, but they all have one main purpose: to transport electrical voltage over the entire length of the fence. Earthing. Improper earthing leads to a useless electric fence. In 90% of all cases where the electric fence does not work, you may know it is due to faulty earthing. Gate controls. You must have a gate controller for each electrified wire. The controller is usually made of plastic or rubber. Gate control sets are a convenient way to install gate controllers. The generator. The generator, or energizer, is the heart of the electric fence system. It converts main or battery power into a high voltage pulse or shock, which is felt by the animal when it touches the fence. In the past, electric fence generators easily short-circuited. Today's generators have a low impedance, which means that they are designed to shock effectively. even if vegetation and other unwanted material touch the fence. Power source, battery, dry disposable or 12 volts wet rechargeable, depending on the model. Main supply and solar power systems are available. Fence wire tensioners. Spring that can stretch up to 1.6 mm wires. Wire tensioners. Activities/assessment. Teacher must work out activities on the given content and provide them to the learners. Learners can work out previous year's papers and follow the hyperlinks to watch the videos on the topics. General questions. What type of material can be used as an insulator between the wire and the pole to make a short circuit? Prevent. Ceramics, rubber, plastics, something that does not conduct electricity. The wires of an electric fence must be very strong due to the voltage in the wires. What type of wire is used to erect an electric fence? What should be the minimum thickness of the wire and what should this wire be covered to prevent rust? Steel wire that is 3 mm thick and galvanized. What should the safety signs warn people against? Electricity/shock/high voltage. Name a few things to keep in mind when installing safety signs against electric fences. Or place on all gates, doors, and fences to warn people of potentially dangerous situations or places. O signs must be large and colorful so that people/children and illiterate people can easily identify and/or see them. O be high enough to be out of reach of thieves. O be high enough to be out of reach of vandals. O be tall enough to be out of reach of animals.
Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more future educational videos.
Topic: Alternative energy sources. Wind and nuclear power. At the end of the lesson, the learners should understand the following concepts. How to convert wind into electrical energy. Purchase and installation of a wind turbine. Benefits of wind energy. Disadvantages of wind energy. Introduction. The purpose of this lesson is to expose the learner to the operation of wind power/turbines. The learner will also gain more knowledge about the composition of the different constructions. Concepts and skills. Wind energy. How to convert wind energy into a form of electrical energy. Works on the same principle as most power generation techniques. You need to be able to capture energy from the wind. Use wind turbine with a propeller type blade. The propeller design is more for horizontal wind turbines. The energy generated from the wind drives the turbines, which in turn are connected to a generator which then produces the energy. Purchase and installation of a wind turbine. Before purchasing it, keep in mind the surrounding area for the place of placement. Should it meet the requirements, the installation should be cost-effective and efficient. If you live on a farm with a lot of open spaces, then the average wind speed is stronger than in a town or city. Also look at the way the terrain around you are. Do not build turbines between mountains and hills. This will affect the wind speed. The stronger the wind, the greater the energy output up to a point. You cannot go faster than the turbine's max wind speed. If there are too many forests and trees in the area, then it is better to consider alternative energy sources. Solar or geothermal energy. Do research on area and whether wind energy will be economical and viable. Make sure the location of area is suitable before purchasing a wind turbine. You can also install a small turbine on a pole to take full advantage of wind power. Make sure your turbine is pointing in the most common direction. Some turbines can adapt to the wind direction. Make use of expert advice. The connection of the power to your home for an extra boost is done by an electrician. The placement of the turbine determines the efficiency of the project. Wind can also be combined with solar power for a greater level of efficiency. Advantages of wind energy. It has no fuel cost, low maintenance costs, It has no cleaning costs, fossil fuels. No carbon tax costs. Natural gas and oil imports reduced. South Africa can make and export its own turbines to earn foreign exchange. No air pollution. Renewable energy source as opposed to fossil fuel being depleted. Wind energy can ensure a more reliable energy source in the long run. It is much cheaper than other sources of energy, especially of great use in remote areas such as farms and communities. Disadvantages of wind energy. The biggest factor is the wind's unreliability. Some areas wind speeds are too low to support a wind farm, so using solar power is better. Is a wind farm where many turbines are installed. Many turbines are needed to make an impact. The construction of the turbines has a major impact on wildlife in the environment during the construction process. The noise factor also plays a big role in the environment. Demonstrations usually confront any proposed wind farm development. People feel the countryside should be left intact. Fossil fuels. Coal oil. Nuclear power. What is nuclear energy? Nuclear energy is formed by splitting uranium or plutonium atoms through chain reactions in a nuclear reactor by a process called nuclear fission. The energy released from splitting the atoms is used to heat water into steam. This steam then turns a turbine, which creates usable electricity. Advantages, disadvantages. Low-cost energy, environmental impact. Reliable power source, water intensive. Zero carbon emissions, risk of nuclear accidents. Promising energy, future, radioactive waste. High energy density, non-renewable energy source. Activity/assessment. Teacher must work out activities on the given content and provide them to the learners. Learners use previous papers to complete the part of the work. YouTube videos of wind turbines and solar power systems. Questions and answers, page 12. Name the energy source used by these structures to generate energy. Wind. Critically discuss the technical aspects of a wind turbine. Consists of 2 or 3 screw-type blades that look like large fans mounted on a rotor. The rotor is coupled to a main shaft that rotates a generator to generate electricity. The higher the turbine, the more benefit is taken from the strong winds. They can either supply power to homes or connect a corner to the main network for more widespread use. Describe how the structure generates electricity. Wind power, kinetic energy, is converted into mechanical energy and then into electrical energy. Wind turns the blades of the turbine. Rotational movement of blades is transmitted by gears to a rotor. Owners of small wind systems enjoy decades of free electricity after initial input costs. Increases value of property. Reliable electricity. Lighting of volatile electricity prices. Personal energy independence. Support the fight against global warming in a tangible way.
Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more future educational videos.
Topic: Structural material, adhesives, fiberglass, and visconite. At the end of this lesson you should be able to understand the following concepts: synthetic materials, properties, application and safety. Adhesives, silicone, PVC, cold glue, epoxy, latex, etc. Fiberglass, resin. Visconite. Teflon. Learning content covered in Grade 12 Term 1. Safety. Synthetic materials. Adhesives, https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=6q@kj4r08. Name the 2 most important aspects to consider when choosing an adhesive. Type of material to be welded. Conditions/circumstances under which this burden will be applied. https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=ubwetxcqnis. Name some types of adhesive. Epoxy, silicone, resorcinol, latex, PVA/PVC, cold glue. No more nails. Name the conditions under which an adhesive can be used and briefly describe each. Heat resistance, temperature. The adhesive itself should not distort, melt, or burn when heated. Some types of plastic are extremely heat resistant like Buccolite, and some are not heat resistant like Perspex, which easily changes shape when heated. Water resistance. When using an adhesive in wet conditions, a water-resistant adhesive should be used to make the joint. Elasticity/flexibility. Some adhesives become very hard and brittle when dried. If we want to weld elastic material, we will use an adhesive, which is still elastic even after it has dried. E.g. Bostik, Prestik. Load capacity. The adhesive must be able to withstand mass or load. Fire resistance/flammability. Where an adhesive is used to weld synthetic materials, where it is subjected to open flames or heat, the adhesive must meet the same properties. Bonding time. The period that an adhesive will last after it has been applied. Durability of usability/cohesion. Period that the mixed adhesive will remain usable before setting. Catalyst and accelerator can affect the rate at which this happens. Describe the difference between the cohesive and adhesion properties of an adhesive. Cohesion. Inherent strength of the adhesive. Adhesion. Ability of the molecules of an adhesive to cling to the molecules of other substances. What can you recommend to improve the bonding/cohesive properties of an adhesive? Apply a thin base coat if the surface is very porous. Apply only a thin layer of the adhesive. Apply adhesive to both surfaces. Too thick a layer of adhesive will lead to a weak load. FIBRGLASS https://www.youtube.com/watch V equals IH1 YBM 6 BJY and T equals 127S. What is a resin? These are low viscosity liquids that can be converted into highly flexible solids by the addition of a hardener. https://www.youtube.com/watch V equals WJZYTFXN and WC. Name 7 precautions that must be taken when working with fiberglass. Catalyst and accelerator must always be stored separately. Explosion. Remove all resin, catalyst, and accelerator from the skin. Wear gloves if skin is sensitive. Use acetone in a well-ventilated area. Handle cast resin carefully. It is brittle and can break easily. Fiberglass mat has small pieces of fiber that can penetrate the skin. Do not inhale or get fiberglass into your eyes. May cause blindness. Why should the catalyst and accelerator be stored separately? They can cause an explosive mixture. What is the hardener also called? Catalyst. Name 10 properties of fiberglass. Light. Waterproof. Do not conduct electricity. Can be formed into any shape. Easy to color. Color fast. Can be sawn, drilled, or filed. Toughness. Brittle when beaten. Easily repairable if it breaks. https://www.youtube.com/watch V equals SIG DM9L3M. Name 5 examples of fiberglass products. Lampshades. Fruit trays. Golf clubs. Boats. Bicycles. Vesconite. https://www.youtube.com/watch V equals OJPN9QRKG-Y. What is Vesconite? Vesconite is a specialized thermoplastic plastic made from internally lubricated polymers. Properties of Vesconite //www.youtube.com/watch V equals 8-bit RS7A0. Vesconite is an exceptional lower material that gives a long life and a low wear coefficient to parts. Even in dirty and unoiled/ungreased conditions, Vesconite gives a long life with low maintenance. and low friction. Whether dry or underwater, ungreased or lubricated, a very low coefficient of friction means Vesconite is ideal for many marine/seawater/water applications. Water is an excellent lubricant for Vesconite that makes it suitable for both dry and wet applications. Vesconite has many advantages over elastomers, bronze, phenolic laminates, rubber, and nylon. Underwater or in humid conditions, Vesconite will not expand/swell, grip or wear like nylon. Vesconite internal lubricants make it suitable for the upper rudder mechanism of boats where there are long periods between lubrication or no lubrication, or where water lubrication cannot be ensured when working with a light ballast. Vesconite is extremely versatile and combines the benefits of metal and non-metal bearings and bushings and performs in most common bearing applications. Long wear life. Vesconite gives up to 10 times the service life of phosphor bronze in poorly lubricated conditions. Vesconite keeps its dimensions, does not swell in water. For most synthetic materials, water expansion is a major problem and excessive clearance is often used to compensate. Larger clearances can increase vibration and cause faster wear and tear and thus a much shorter lifespan. Vesconite is one of the most dimensionally stable synthetic materials available because it does not expand in water. Therefore, Vesconite bearings can be machined with the correct clearance without fear of expansion/swelling. Vesconite stays hard. Softening caused by moisture or immersion conditions has disadvantages for traditional synthetic carrier, such as those based on elastomers and nylons, which soften in water and lose their compression force. Vesconite does not delaminate. Delamination occurs when liquid penetrates the lower layers and causes the layers to break down or peel off. Delamination is a major problem in many laminated or composite materials where swelling in the cracked portions occur. Vesconite has low friction. Compared to most elastomers, rubber, nylons, and laminates, Vesconite has a low static and dynamic friction occurring in difficult working environment or dry or wet, lightly or heavily charged, maintained. SOS, save our shafts. Vesconite protects the shaft and liner due to its low friction, reduces wear and tear and increases service life, limit maintenance or early replacement of expensive components, thus providing financial savings. Vesconite does not wear. Vesconite is not subject to electrolytic corrosion, a major problem with traditional metal lower materials. Easy removal of Vesconite bearings. Since there is no electrolytic corrosion with Vesconite, this means that it does not burn like metal bearings and therefore easy to remove. Safety and health. Vesconite does not contain any asbestos, lead, hazardous fibers or substances, which makes it safe to machine and handle. Easy to machine. Compared to metallic, cut less, bronze or synthetic materials, Vesconite is very easy and safe to use. Machine on standard metal or woodworking machinery. Vesconite compared to white metal. Vesconite has a higher loading limit than white metal, a higher metal fatigue strength and 2 to 3 times the wear and tear. Product range. Bushes, pressure washers, solid bars, plates and wear tracks. Applications in agriculture include tractors, crankshaft bushings for most tractor makes, buses for brake and clutch systems, steering clutch buses, lifting bushes, planters, PNU monosem planters wear plates, pressure wheel bushes. Drive shaft needle bearings can also be replaced with Vesconite. Harvesters, variable speed pulley bushes, windmills. Vesconite is of particular value in wind pump applications. Lots of metal on metal parts, leading to high wear coefficient. With Vesconite buses, these parts can be given a longer life. Irrigation. Several buses in the gearboxes of pivot irrigation systems. Trailers. Coupling pin/rocker and pivot boxes for use on high and low speed agricultural trailers. Why use Vesconite? Has a very low coefficient of friction. Can be used in a dry or lubricated application. Dimensionally stable. Do not swell or burn on ashes. Do not soften or delaminate. Benefits of Vesconite. Easy to install and remove. Does not wear out and is non-conductive. Will not wear axles and liners like the traditional lower material. Resistance to a wide range of chemicals. TEFLON https://www.youtube.com/watch V equals JURCRKOWs. Description of Teflon. One of the most versatile and well-known chemical engineering products, Teflon, was discovered by chance. Inventors tossed together chemicals and accidentally discovered a valuable product like Teflon. Teflon is a polytetrafluoroethylene, PTFE. Teflon is the plastic with the lowest coefficient of friction. It is also used as a non-stick coating for pens and other cookware. Teflon is very unreactive and is often used in containers and pipes for reactive chemicals. The melting point is 327 degrees Celsius. Teflon is sometimes said to be an outgrowth of the US space program with several terrestrial applications, but in fact its first significant use in the Manhattan Project, as an essential highly reactive uranium hexafluoride. It was first sold commercially in 1946. Advantages. Inactive around virtually all commercial chemicals, acids, alcohols, coolants, hydrocarbons, solvents, synthetic compounds and hydraulic fluids. Suitable for steam up to 250 psi 406 degrees Fahrenheit, has a low volumetric expansion property, easy to clean and sterilize. Not affected by continuous bending, vibration or impulse pressure. Resistant to alternating hot and cold cycles. Easier to move, handle and install than rubber pipes with a comparable burst pressure rating. The low coefficient of friction of Teflon and anti-stick properties reduces pressure while maintaining good surface pressure. Jackson Teflon pipes have an optional conductive liner for removing static buildup.
Please like, share and subscribe to the channel for more future educational videos.
Topic: Precision Farming Systems, GPS, Mechanization. At the end of this lesson you should be able to understand the following concepts: precision farming, GPS, mechanization in agriculture. Learning content covered in grade 12 terms 2 and 3. Construction processes, tools and equipment. Concepts and skills. Precision farming. https://youtube.be/yfchfxhts. What is precision agriculture? Precision agriculture seeks to use new technologies GPS, GIS, VRT, robots, drones, yield maps and more modern technology to increase crop yield and profitability, while reducing traditional inputs, soil, water, fertilizer, herbicides, and insecticides, to crops. Let grow. In other words, farmers who use precision farming use less to produce more. GPS devices on tractors, for example, enable farmers to plant crops in more efficient patterns and move from point A to point B with more precision, saving time and fuel. Lands can be leveled with lasers, which means that water can be applied more efficiently and with less flow away to local streams and rivers. The result can. Precision farming offers economic and ecological improvements. Reduction of resources, seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, fuel. Reduction of machine and working hours. Improving crop yield and crop quality. Minimizing the environmental impact. Complete documentation of the production process. What is GPS? The Global Positioning System, GPS, is a satellite-based navigation system consisting of at least 24 satellites. GPS works 24 hours a day in any weather conditions, anywhere in the world, without subscription fees or setup fees. The U.S. Department of Defense, USDOD, originally launched the satellites into orbit for military use, but they were made available for civilian use in the 1980s. How GPS works. GPS satellites orbits the Earth twice a day in a precise orbit. Each satellite transmits unique signal and orbit parameters that allow GPS devices to decode and calculate The exact location of the satellite. GPS receivers use this information to calculate the user's exact location. In essence, the GPS receiver measures the distance to each satellite at the time it takes to receive a sent signal. With distance measurements from a few more satellites, the receiver can determine the position of the user and display it electronically. E.g., measure your running route, map a golf course, find a way home from anywhere. To calculate your 2D position, latitude and longitude, and orbital motion, a GPS receiver must be connected to the signal of at least 3 satellites. With 4 or more satellites in sight, the receiver can determine your 3D position, latitude, longitude and altitude. Generally, a GPS receiver will detect 8 or more satellites, but it depends on the time of day and where you are on Earth. Some devices can do it aloft your wristwatch. Once your position is determined, the GPS unit can calculate other information, such as speed, direction, trajectory/ped, travel distance, distance to destination, sunrise and sunset time, and much more. How accurate is GPS? Today's GPS receivers are extremely accurate thanks to their parallel multi-channel design. Our receivers are quick to pick up satellites when they are turned on for the first time. They retain detection in dense tree cover or in urban environments with tall buildings. Certain atmospheric factors and common problems can affect the accuracy of GPS receivers. Common GPS receivers are usually within 10 meters accurate. Accuracy is even better on the water. Some common GPS receivers' accuracy is improved by WAAS, Wide Area Augmentation System. This capability can improve the accuracy to better than 3 meters by giving corrections to the atmosphere. No additional equipment or fees are required to take advantage of WAAS satellites. Users can also get better accuracy with differential GPS, DGPS, which corrects GPS distances by an average of 1 to 3 meters. The U.S. Coast Guard operates the most common DGPS correction service, which consists of a network of towers that receive GPS signals and send a corrected signal through beacon transmitters. To get the corrected signal, in addition to their GPS, users must also have a differential beacon receiver and beacon antenna. Use of GPS in agriculture and farming. GPS use in agriculture. Self-propelled tractors, stretchers cannot manage them themselves. If farmers plow their fields with a GPS survey, the tractor can then be programmed to follow the same route for cultivation, fertilization, pest control, and harvesting. The programming of tractor routes has the potential to save a lot of money for the farmer. Pesticide sprayers, insects do not attack a land with a uniform distribution. Instead, the outbreaks of insect activity were concentrated in certain areas. Workers moving through the crops can use a GPS to record the location of insect problems. The data can then be used by crop spray pilots to selectively determine the problem areas instead of treating an entire field. This method saves time, fuel, insecticides, and crop exposure to chemicals. Tracking of livestock, the location of valuable animals on large farms can be monitored with GPS transmitters attached to a collar around the animal's neck. When animals are sent to the market, the GPS transmitters can be used to determine their location. Accurate planting, GPS can also be used conveniently when planning the planting of a specific crop. Each seed has a specific spacing and planting depth in different soil types to ensure maximum yield. Creation of yield cards, GPS plays an important role in creating yield maps for specific crops. During harvest, for example, GPS can be used to map expected yields of a given crop from one piece of land based on the land characteristics and the seed characteristics. Harvest, GPS plays an important role in determining the area of a farm that is ready to be harvested and how the harvest will take place. The GPS will also give an estimate of the size of the area being harvested and the expected yields from the area. Finding a yield map, GPS can also be used to track a yield map by mounting a GPS receiver on a farm machine and then collecting the data. Environmental control, application of herbicides or pesticides based on the capacity of each square meter. Reduces the application rate of the pesticide used. This allows the soil to absorb all the pesticides, which reduces the chance of runoff. Farm planning, GPS plays an important role in the planning of a field ready for planting. GPS will give the total size of the area and help to determine which crop will be planted on which part of the fields by using different factors such as soil properties and crop characteristics. Field mapping, GPS gives an accurate estimate of the field being prepared for farming. This will allow experts to tell which part of the field will be used for farming activities and which area will be used for other non-farming related activities. Taking soil samples, soil sampling is one of the most important uses of GPS in agriculture. It is important to know what type of soil is available on a given piece of agricultural land, as this will help determine the type of crop planted on the farm. Crop exploration, GPS provides an accurate mapping of an area that helps to search for crops grown in a specific area. In this way, experts can identify the nature and type of crops that thrive within a particular environment and help to improve the quality of the crop. Yield mapping, after a crop is planted and ready for harvest, GPS can be used to estimate the yield of a given agricultural land. This can be achieved by aerial mapping where experts can determine the amount of yields according to the area covered by the crop. Correlation of production techniques with crop yields, GPS can be used to form a correlation between the production technique used over a given piece of land and the crop yields after a given period. This information can then be used to determine the viability of a given technique. Mapping of soil properties, GPS plays an important role in determining the soil properties of a given soil to determine its variability and suitability for a given crop. It also helps researchers determine which area of an agricultural land contains what type of land and which area is suitable for a given crop. Location of machinery, it is easier to locate any farm machinery on a large piece of land thanks to GPS. The farmer does not have to physically go out and locate farming equipment, especially in cases where the number is high. GPS can determine the exact location of this farm machinery. Machine direction, technology requires the use of autonomous machinery for farming. GPS is used to direct this machinery to decide in which direction the seeds will be placed and the spaces between each seed. Identification of suitable cultivation areas, GPS plays an important role in determining which areas in a given agricultural land are suitable for cultivation. This is done by mapping the area under cultivation and analyzing the soil samples to determine the viability of the soil. Classification of cultivation areas on the basis of different characteristics, GPS can be used to classify different areas based on different characteristics such as soil types and the site maps. Areas that are not suitable for cultivation can be identified and alienated, while areas that are suitable can be developed. Assessment for the availability of water in an area, GPS was used to assess the availability of water or water resources within a given location. Water sources such as rivers or canals can be easily singled out with GPS. Identification of irrigated crops, GPS can also be used to identify areas where crops have been irrigated and those that have not been irrigated. It helps to create a profile between irrigated crops and non-irrigated crops and to make comparisons. Identification of swamps and other waterlogged areas, GPS can be used to identify swampy areas and waterlogged areas that may not be ideal for certain types of crops. It helps to determine the suitability of these fields for certain crops and their unsuitability for other crops. Mapping of rivers, GPS helps in compiling a map of all rivers in an area that builds a profile of the area with respect to water flow. Farmers and researchers can see the presence of rivers and help determine the crops grown in that area. Land use in the area, GPS can also be used to monitor land use within a given area. Using GPS, it is easier to see which area of the soil has been cultivated and which part of the soil has been left bare. Contour mapping, in cases where the country is irregular, GPS has played an important role in determining the contours within the specific environment. This is because some crops may not do well in contour countries, while others may thrive in these countries. Mapping of irrigation systems, dams and canals, in cases where the land needs to be irrigated, GPS can help locate irrigation systems such as dams and canals. Meteorological mapping such as climate patterns, GPS plays an important role in mapping some climatic conditions that determine the type of crop that can grow in a given region. Staff mapping, GPS can also play an important role in mapping the number of staff members on a given agricultural land at a specific time of day. This is important if a farmer wants to measure the productivity of the staff on a farm. Planting maps, GPS can help in compiling a map of a plantation and determining the crop yields in a given plantation. Mapping of water resources, GPS can also be used to map existing water resources within a given area to determine the viability of crop growth and crop yields in a given area. Emerging agricultural technologies that will change the world. The following are advances identified with agricultural development. Sensors. Sensors help agriculture with the constant traceability and determination of yields in farm animals/crops and the condition of farm machines. Food. Food can directly benefit from hereditary adaptation and possibly from the delivery of meat specifically in a laboratory. Automation. Automation helps agriculture to deploy automated and micro-robots to monitor and provide feedback at high levels. Engineering. Engineering includes advances that expand the scope of farming to new resources, new places, and new areas of the economy. Sensors. Air and ground sensors. These sensors are a fundamental addition to robotic farming that empower an ongoing understanding of the current state of farm, forest, and water conditions. Telematics hardware provide mechanical innovative devices. For example, tractors warn the mechanics that a break can occur soon. Animal biometrics, collars with GPS, RFID, and biometrics can provide continuous data on the various domestic animals. Crop sensors. Instead of endorsing the provision before application, the crop sensors supply a calculated amount to the application equipment. Optical sensors have the ability to distinguish the crops, for example, infrared light. Infrastructure sensors can be utilized for checking vibrations and material conditions in structures, spans, production lines, branches, and other foundation. Combined with a clever system, such sensors could sustain essential data back to support teams or robots. Genetically designed food, laboratory meat. This is the production of totally new strains of animals and plants, keeping in mind the end goal to better address natural and physiological needs. A takeoff from hereditarily adjusted nourishment. In vitro meat. Also known as refined meat or tube steak, it is a substance item that has never been a piece of a complete, living creature. Several current research examination tasks are developing in vitro meat tentatively, although no meat has yet been delivered for public utilization. Mechanization. Changing rate strip control. Based on existing geolocation innovations, future control of strips can save money on seeds, minerals, compost, and herbicides by reducing input costs. Fast cycle with fast growth, the next era of specific reproduction where the decisive result is quantitatively examined and improvements are algorithmically proposed. Agricultural robots, also known as agribots, are used to robotize agricultural procedures, for example harvesting, picking, plowing, weed control, planting, water application, and so on. Accurate agribusiness, farming management based on observation and response to in-field varieties. With satellites and sensors, agriculturists can streamline the yields on inputs while protecting assets on a larger scale. Mechanical farming swarms. It is the use of a large number of small robots with sensors, which together will examine, anticipate, develop, and concentrate crops from the environment with no human mediation. Small applications are not too far off now. Design. Closed natural ecosystems. These are ecosystems that are not dependent on the environment outside the ecosystem. Such closed environments turn waste products into oxygen, food, and water, taking into account the ultimate goal of maintaining living structures that occupy the framework. Vertical cultivation. An increase in urban agribusiness and vertical farming develops plant or animal life in the urban environments. By using methods such as glass houses, vertical farms can increase normal light using productive lighting. The benefits are optimal use of space, continuous yields, protective climate, protection against diseases, pests and plagues, and low transport costs.
Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more future educational videos.